Chapter 141. Today, I will clear all the bills to zero. Who are you? Actually managing to step into this place. The icy voice reached Su Chi's ears. I'm your daddy. Su Chi looked up. His expression paused slightly. On the majestic throne adorned with black and gold carvings, a girl in a black dress was watching him with dangerous, indifferent eyes that reflected the destruction of the Star River. Holy crap, there are planets in her eyes. Su Chi calculated in his mind. This power, apart from the evil god and the traveling merchant, it had already surpassed the upper limits of what he had truly encountered, not counting the priests from the Love, Death super players, as he had never truly witnessed their strength. Now, even if he activated Unrivaled, it seemed to be futile. This classmate. Su Chi spoke up. Don't be agitated. Calm down. I am not your enemy. The girl in the black dress stared at Su Chi's face, her eyes constantly flickering. After a 1-second pause, in a calm and gentle voice, she said, When did you notice that I was agitated? Her fingers flicked slightly. The barrier of black fog around them burst forth with terrifying, massive waves like countless volcanoes erupting. And do you think your strength could make me agitated? Oh? What's with the huge rage? Also, stop showing off your strength. Fortunes can change in 30 years. Don't think the young are always poor. I didn't mean that. Su Chi, sensing her dangerous power and that calm gaze, continued softly. However, although I may not be strong enough, I can help you escape. Su Chi looked towards the black fog. For instance, the flaw you just sensed in the black fog was an opportunity one created intentionally. That was a lie. He had merely caught a break by chance, completely reactive. If the girl hadn't made her move, he might have been consumed already. But never mind whether it's true or not. As long as the effect is achieved, that's good enough. The girl in the black dress remained silent. Indeed, there was a slight flaw just now, unlikely to occur in the nearly perfect operation of the ancient mists. If it was due to someone's interference, then it would make sense. But that wasn't the point. After about 5 seconds of staring at Su Chi, she spoke. You lied. Su Chi was stunned for a moment. You're pretty sharp. Huh. This person seemed even keener than the traveling merchant. But had he given any slip? This is unwarranted slander, Su Chi declared righteously. We could be open and honest and have a good talk about a possible collaboration. Holding the key that could free her, he who never came out on the losing end, even if she belonged to the high sequence, the Transcendence series, or was a god, it made no difference to him. Anyway, he was going to pull off a con. However, the girl's gaze remained fixed on Su Chi's face, making Su Chi a bit puzzled. Why the hell are you staring at me? Down, girl. But the girl in the black dress did not respond to Su Chi's suggestion. Instead, she calmly said, Don't you feel? We've met somewhere before. Su Chi paused and pondered for half a second. You have heard the story of the Hustlers. His statues as sect hierarch of the Hustler sect were being erected? His grand image spread far and wide? No, said the girl in black, her voice cold. Su Chi sighed. It seemed the Hustler sect was still a long way from successfully going public and becoming world-renowned. Her face, expressionless, continued to watch Su Chi. Also, there is something odd about your aura. Su Chi's expression didn't change, but he was somewhat on alert. His own aura wasn't simple, influenced by the evil god, ancient god, and the traveling merchant. Could she sense it too? It might be a mistake on your part, or perhaps it's the result of me wandering all over the place. I might have picked up something unusual, Su Chi considered before replying. The girl in black flickered her gaze. Her finger wavered slightly, and the power she gathered in midair hit the distant black fog. Boom! The terrifying power burst forth, causing tremendous ripples. Su Chi watched the scene and shook his head. This won't break it. I know. You know, and you still do it? Su Chi felt the need to ponder her intentions. He chose not to use inspection. It was meant to deal with the black fog outside, and it probably wouldn't work. No, it would definitely not work against this formidable girl in the black dress, and performing such an act under her scrutiny was best avoided. However, using ? To observe was not a problem since it worked on both the traveling merchant and the evil god. Su Qi looked towards her head. She wants to slap you dead. Oh? Su Qi was filled with question marks. Why? He had only seen this message on enemies and most teammates. I haven't even exerted myself yet, and you're already trying to crush me? The girl in the black dress looked at Su Qi calmly. Don't you find me familiar? Su Qi scrutinized her face, recalling seriously, sorry, I'm kind of face-blind. I tend to forget unimportant people and things quite quickly. He even felt a sense of déjà vu when he saw a white cat that had been shaved a few days ago. Okay. The girl suddenly extended her hand, with spirit patterns floating in the air around her, each emitting an astonishing presence. What are you doing? The girl in the black dress did not answer but instead said calmly, I had a dream recently. Although many things in that dream were blurry, there were a few things I vaguely remember, and this strange sense of familiarity seems to come from there. Su Qi watched as those spirit patterns flew towards the center, seemingly creating some sort of image, and his heart skipped a beat. Because in the image above, something looked eerily familiar. A big and a small figure were running down a street. In the dream, I encountered danger and was chased by countless monsters. Yet at that time I met someone. He gave me tasty things, protected me from harm, and even sacrificed himself, leaving me alone. You! Su Qi's expression changed slightly. The other party actually was the master of destruction, that little girl. At first, he only found her face somewhat familiar, but the difference between a child and a teenager was too great. The girl in the black dress watched Su Qi's reaction, her eyes flickering. She said coldly, It seems you finally remember. No, who are you again? The girl in the black dress fell into a brief silence. Then boom! The entire black fog barrier nearly shattered under an overwhelming force. Su Qi's eyelids twitched violently, and he cleared his throat promptly. Just kidding, respected master of destruction. Please calm down. After all, we are still game friends. The girl in the black dress had a cold look on her face. Her teeth gritted. How dare you bring that up? The girl in the black dress exuded a terrifying aura of destruction. You deceitful scoundrel, taking advantage of my innocence as a young spiritual body, you scammed me out of money. Utterly abominable. Shui. Who scammed who? These are clear-cut facts, don't spout nonsense. The girl in the black dress glared at Su Qi. Today, I will wipe the slate clean. Su Qi. Kill! Cheng Feng let out a low roar, surging through the tunnel. A horde of monsters were gathered together, blocking the entrance to the tunnel. His spear tip surged with intense fluctuations, and wherever he pierced, a radius of 3.5 meters around it would burst into the air. Boom, boom, boom. And Sword White Clothes was even more fierce. At this moment, the mark on his forehead shimmered, and his long sword was coated with a strange energy. Ordinary sword moves were used, but they produced sharp energy that turned into sword winds that slashed through the distant groups of monsters. Blood and gore splattered everywhere. What is this? Cheng Feng's eyes widened. Spiritual power. Sword White Clothes had also used it for the first time just now, his gaze shifting. So powerful. Cheng Feng, did you succeed at changing your profession? Sword White Clothes nodded, then shook his head. Not yet. I've only just unlocked spiritual power. He pointed to the mark on his forehead. And it's still quite difficult to control. That strike had been successful only after many tries. But having completed the trial, he could breathe a sigh of relief. Even in the event of death now, it wouldn't affect his profession too much. What remains are the profession bonuses and traits, among other details. However, my combat power has indeed increased significantly. Cheng Feng's eyes lit up. Then I'm reassured. Let's go. With his newly enhanced strength, Sword White Clothes swept through the monsters in the tunnel at a rapid pace alongside Chung Feng. Looking around, he said, "There are many traces left behind here. A large group of mutants fleeing together. Those 3 players should be among them. They must have left a while ago." He was very accurate in assessing the situation, having known from the start that the 3 players in another room would have a way to break free, of course except for Su Qi. "But we should still make it if we hurry. We must catch up as quickly as possible." Chung Feng nodded. "Okay." He chuckled. "Let's complete the escape mission quickly, and show Su Buxian that guy. Only by following the main storyline do you have a way out." Sword White Clothes had a pessimistic view of this. The dangers there were self-evident, and he wasn't someone who liked to abandon missions, but once he gave up, it meant that the success rate of the mission was slim. "Let's go." Sword White Clothes said no more. The 2 of them moved quickly forward. Soon, they discovered several connected spaces and traces of battle. "They're quite fast." Monsters lunged at them from all around. Chung Feng let out a low shout, his spear piercing straight through one. There are still many monsters left, which means they didn't linger for battle and went straight for escape. Among the dead bodies of mutants around them, it was clear the battles had been fierce. They didn't stay too long in one place and continued to rush forward. "Brother Jian." Chung Feng's eyes suddenly darted, spotting an item in the corridor ahead. "That thing again!" It was the abstract horse sculpture from before. Physical damage was ineffective against it, and it obviously had killed quite a few mutants already. Sword White Clothes' gaze sharpened. "Don't panic." He channeled his scarce spiritual power onto the sword. The success rate wasn't high, and it seemed that a significant amount of spiritual energy also dissipated. Spiritual power was no longer used directly like data or skills, but instead required players to master proficiency levels. Different people, combined with their traits and weapons, would discover various ways to use it. With a whoosh, Sword White Clothes, wielding the sword infused with spiritual power, successfully penetrated the sculpture. "Nicely done, Brother Jian." Spiritual power could be infused in combat, making ordinary weapons capable of damaging eerie beings such as ghosts and specters. Sword White Clothes was already seeing many fresh bloodstains. "Let's go. Those people must be up ahead." Chapter 142. Sweating profusely, "Aren't you, young girl?" As they gradually approached, they heard an intense battle unfolding. Numerous mutants were unleashing their strength against the keepers in protective suits in front of them. Weapons, energy, and superpowers burst forth repeatedly. Meanwhile, Sword White Clothes spotted those 3 players. "I'll go help." Sword White Clothes, having just changed professions, moved and his sword flashed with light. The mark on his forehead shone brilliantly. He instantly unleashed strength surpassing his previous level. "What's that?" Sun Xiaohuan and the others also noticed Sword White Clothes and Chung Feng, their eyes lighting up. "Other players, they aren't dead. And they look familiar." The man stared at Sword White Clothes, his eyelids twitching slightly. "It's the super rookie from Sword Flower, and he's completed his job change too." All of them were beta testers and could instantly tell the status of Sword White Clothes from the shining mark on his forehead. His strength, speed, and physical strength had all significantly increased. Normally, in such intense team battles, individual combat capability was secondary. However, with the job change completed, the strength that Sword White Clothes burst with quickly alleviated the pressure on everyone. In just 5 minutes, he had forced the Keepers back in defeat. "They've gone back up 1 level. The mutants shouted. "Damn it! Chase after them while we've got the momentum. Don't let them get away. Charge!" But just then, the middle-aged man shouted, "All of you, stop!" The numerous mutants paused at his voice. The middle-aged man said sternly, "Are you all fools? We've reached this final barrier, and we're about to face the real obstruction. That supervisor won't just sit by idle. It's probably waiting for us to head there. At this moment, we should be recuperating and planning. Give it everything in one final effort. That's the most prudent strategy." Chung Feng was moved. "Well said. Finally, there was a presence of a prudent gameplay style. This was the normal procedure and rhythm. Sun Xiaohuan and the others also took a deep breath, recovered some strength and conversed with Sword White Clothes and Chung Feng. Did you go to the deep space? That is really unlucky. We also lost a teammate. Mourn his loss, Sun Xiaohuan said softly, unaware that the teammate was Su Buxian. Sword White Clothes turned to them. Let's not talk about that for now. You are all beta testers. You must be close to completing your job changes. Yes, although we've been constantly fighting. The trial is also ready, but the job change still needs a moment to complete. The scarred youth nodded. Then I advise you to change your jobs right now. The three were slightly stunned. Right now? Sword White Clothes, in his white clothing, holding his long sword, looked toward the upper level. The moment I completed my job change, I understood that to escape this instance, relying on the original level 20 untransformed strength wasn't enough. Activating the spiritual power and getting the profession enhancement is the only chance to fight for survival. So, I suggest that each of you complete your job change here. The scarred youth looked hesitant. Our trials for changing jobs are complete. We need a safe environment, and it will consume an uncertain amount of spiritual ability points. You know this amount is not small, the risk is significant. Sword White Clothes had completed his job change during the battle, using nearly 500 spiritual ability points to forcibly open the mark on his forehead, also obtaining a significant enhancement which was slightly different from others. Sword White Clothes frowned. But only this way, there's a chance of success in escaping. The man patted the scarred youth on the shoulder. He's right. We can't wait any longer. Haven't you seen how terrifying that supervisor is? Even if we run, we must give it our all. All right, I understand. The scarred youth took a deep breath and began preparing to complete the job change with the others. Meanwhile, the supervisor was lying with his eyes closed at the last defense line at the exit, holding a giant axe, seemingly waiting for those people to arrive. When ants think they have a chance to escape the cage, they don't realize it's just a game. Watching every ant desperately struggle, seeing hope and then facing despair, was the best source of energy. The negative emotions brought about by the pollution effect were also excellent. According to this progress, maybe after a few more feeding days, the stability of ancient mists will increase again. The chance of that existence's recovery will become slim. My master's future opponent will also be reduced by 1. Its body's totem faintly blinked. The pattern displayed was not of the evil god, but represented another divine being. At this very moment, within the thick old day's black fog, the Master of Destruction glared at Su Qi, saying, "Why refuse?" When the Master of Destruction had just asked to settle the bills, Su Qi resolutely refused. "Because it's urgent, big sister. Don't you see what time it is?" Su Qi pointed outside at the black fog. "They are absorbing energy, deploying troops, and evolving now. Escaping is the most vital thing right now." And Su Qi took out the bill and flipped through it. "You owe too much. It will take so long to pay back." Master of Destruction. Look, what a sly miscreant. He even carried the ledger with him, and it seemed he only accounted for a bit of it. There appeared to be other victims too. She suppressed the urge to slap this bastard to death, her eyes slightly cold. "I have never suffered a loss at someone else's hands. This matter must be resolved. But if you think it's too long, then let's just play one round, gambling all the bills. Of course, it might seem somewhat unreasonable for me, but you can choose any game, Go, chess, poker, video games. Well, not that last one. Anything else is fine." Having been naive and excessively simple in her youth, she was swindled round and round, and the memories from her spiritual body made her clench her teeth in anger. So she studied a bit and discovered many discrepancies, and she wanted to squarely defeat this guy in these areas. Su Qi sighed. "You're just delivering yourself to me, aren't you? All right then. Since that's the case, how about we make it quick? Fine, but no using powers to cheat." Su Qi widened his eyes. "How can you malign someone's good name out of nowhere?" "Heh." Su Qi pulled out a deck of cards. "Playing cards? Huh?" The Master of Destruction's eyes flickered. She was ready. But Su Chi didn't play according to her wishes. Ordinary playing is boring. Let's play the simplest. You pick any card, and I'll guess what it is. How about that? Master of Destruction. Question mark. She hesitated for a moment. Su Chi was best not at defeating others in their domain but at pulling them into his own and brutally suppressing them. However, now it seemed advantageous for her. Her eyes flickered with a faint light. Okay. Su Chi then spread out the poker cards. Now you draw. The Master of Destruction did not immediately start but glanced at the poker cards. All she needed was one look to tell if there was any trickery. After confirming that there were no issues, she softly said, "Wait." Then she placed her finger on Su Chi's forehead. Su Chi slightly paused. The next moment, Su Chi felt the world spin, his entire vision blurred, and then he came to his senses. The Master of Destruction had already withdrawn her hand. "I've already drawn." Su Chi looked at her hand, but it was empty. "Don't look anymore. I drew blindly, and I've put away the cards." The Master of Destruction looked at Su Chi. "Your ability is very special. I won't give you any chances." She had previously studied Su Chi, who seemed able to deduce information from things within his sight, like some sort of investigative trait, and it was of a high level which she currently could not detect. Given this, the Master of Destruction also had a way to counteract investigative traits, which was to directly block the investigation and avoid informational traces by all means. Just like the old days when all traces were swept away, past myths disappeared without a trace. Now, the cards have been blindly drawn, and even she did not know which one it was, leaving no information and no traces. Impressive. After seeing her maneuvers, Su Chi could only genuinely admire. The Master of Destruction indeed guessed his secret to always winning bets and had even prepared to handle it. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Are you really sure?" Some investigative traits manifest extraordinary characteristics, merely gathering information from conversations. The Master of Destruction calmly looked at Su Chi. "Do you think that will work on me?" Su Chi. "It seems you're confident of victory. Since you're so confident, how about we raise the stakes?" The Master of Destruction furrowed her brow. "Raise the stakes?" She pondered. "Okay, if I win, in addition to clearing the bill, you will need to sign a contract." "What kind of contract?" "Master and servant." The Master of Destruction uttered 2 words. Su Chi's eyes brightened. "You want to acknowledge me as the Master?" Bam! The Master of Destruction slammed her palm on the ground, creating a rumble. Her eyes filled with a dangerous air of destruction, coldly staring at Su Chi. "If it weren't for the fact you saved me, I wouldn't have been able to resist killing you by now." Cough. "Just a joke." Su Chi looked at the cracked ground and coughed calmly. "Fine. If I guess it, it's simple. The bill increases by 100% of the previous day's amount every day." Question mark. Master of Destruction? Do you think I'm a fool? This calculation would turn the debt into an astronomical figure in no time. So you can see that there's indeed a hint of usury. Su Chi took a step back. "Then let's cancel the upfront." The Master of Destruction widened her eyes. "Isn't that still usury?" "Bastard." Su Chi shrugged. "That's no way to talk to someone who saved your life." The Master of Destruction made up her mind and spat out a word. "Fine." She couldn't possibly lose, even with extraordinary traits, which rely on traces. In the old days, traces were the only way to find the truth, a problem that plagued countless investigators for thousands of years. She had no way to detect even a hint. She was sure to win. And then, Su Chi, smiling, extended his hand. Then slowly spread out the poker cards. And unhurriedly flipped them over. Su Chi looked at the remaining 53 visible cards. He scanned the area, paused, and his eyes lit up. "Oh, so there is a King of Hearts missing." This series of actions had the girl in the black dress standing rigidly in place. She was utterly disoriented. It felt like defending against heaven, earth, and the air, only to be bewildered by a corn cob. As the master of destruction, her eyes, once sparkling with Star River, were now filled with various emotions. Silence. Hush. Distracted. Complex and perplexed. Su Qi then patted her shoulder, saying, "Young lady, the real skill sometimes lies in simplicity. Sweating much, young girl?" Chapter 143. This is the part where you pay extra. Have you ever seen a cat? Have you ever seen a furious, bristling cat? At this moment, the black dress girl's long hair exploded and danced in the air, revealing a cold, destructive aura in her eyes. Su Qi felt he was in trouble. He had wanted to casually bring up the matter of the bill, but now it was stuck in his throat, unable to be voiced, feeling a sense of danger. "You promised not to be agitated." Su Qi coughed, reminding her. The master of destruction fixed her gaze on Su Qi as the terrifying strength cracked the ground under her, clenching her silver teeth and saying word by word, "I am not agitated. Dead men tell no tales. If that's the case, then I'm relieved. Su Qi, let's get back to the betting bill we were just talking about." Bang! The spiritual pressure of destruction began to disperse. Calmly stepping over several meters of cracks on the ground, Su Qi said, 100% daily isn't much of a problem, and if you don't want to pay the interest, you could even pay it off right now." "Oh?" The master of destruction looked at Su Qi with a hint of confusion in her eyes. "Using that master-servant contract." Before Su Qi could finish, the air and ground around him exploded with a boom, boom, boom. He really needed to improve his mental fortitude. Look at the traveling merchant. His composure is impressive. No matter how much he is tricked, he never gets physical. But it wasn't a big issue. Sensing the terrifying spiritual pressure around him, Su Qi himself remained unharmed. It seemed this black dress girl still had some conscience left. "All right, no more joking. You brought this upon yourself." Su Qi didn't tease her further. "I plainly refused before." The first move, shifting the blame. The master of destruction fell silent. It really was just as described. Moreover, braving life and death, facing immense hardships to step in here, was purely to take you out of this place. The second move, playing the emotional card, though a large part of it was to change jobs, but that's not important. At this moment, the black dress girl's eyes softened a lot as she looked at Su Qi. Her chilling gaze diminished, and then she slowly retracted her strength. Su Qi added, "Of course, that comes at a different price." The master of destruction took a deep breath, pressed her violently throbbing brow, and forcibly suppressed the bursting strength. She felt she had withdrawn her power too soon. Receiving the memories and emotions of a young spiritual body, she wasn't much affected at first, but his arrival stirred her emotions. "Stay calm. Stay calm. Let's get back to the matter at hand." The black-dressed girl's eyes twinkled like the Star River, looking towards the black fog with a cold voice. "This is the ancient mists, carrying vast and complex formations and infused with mature energy, extremely dangerous." Indeed, Su Qi did not deny it. The black fog here was terrifyingly abnormal. Every step could be lethal. She slowly gazed into Su Qi's face. "And you were able to enter because you were too weak to be targeted. And you possessed some sort of item that allowed you to luckily reach here." This point, the master of destruction was right. Amidst the overwhelming black fog, Su Qi had taken shortcuts, and if it weren't for the master of destruction attracting a large amount of black fog, he would have likely been devoured before crossing the sea of black fog. "And I am different. Once I take a step, this ancient mist will surely erupt, and the killing intent will probably be even more astonishing. I won't be able to pay attention to anything else in full force, and you're too fragile, just a light touch would." She uttered one word, "Die." Normal spiritual bodies will also suffer backlash upon death. Before reaching a certain sequence, they would directly die. "So," the master of destruction calmly said, The ability for you to see through information might not be effective for me. Su Qi glanced at her, and he had already seen quite a lot of information from the constantly refreshing question mark above her head. Her own strength is weakening, yet the energy structure of the ancient mists is complete. She already believes there is no hope of escape. So, you better leave early to avoid you as my creditor, dying here when I eventually leave. Wouldn't that be a great loss? Fair point, Su Qi said, but are you sure you can make it out on your own? Of course. Whenever I want to leave, I can leave. The black-dressed girl exuded a majestic aura, her divine presence as the master of destruction overwhelming. No one can stop the master of destruction. Being stubborn, huh? Su Qi waved his hand. All right, then I'll go first. The black-dressed girl silently watched as Su Qi walked past her resolutely and decisively. Yet, just 5 seconds later runtime object she realized the footsteps had stopped. The black-dressed girl blinked and turned around, only to discover Su Qi was sitting with his legs crossed on his own throne, looking down at her. The black-dressed girl calmly looked at him. What exactly do you want to do? Su Qi smiled lightly. I'm just feeling it out. Yet he revealed some dissatisfaction. But it's quite ordinary. Cold, hard on the buttocks. A 1,000-year-old throne may look majestic, but it seems not very comfortable. Not quite up to the soft padded stool I bought on discount at the furniture store. Did I ask for your opinion? The black-dressed girl glared. Su Qi snapped his fingers. Hence, I'm planning to develop a new kind of throne. One that not only looks majestic but is also comfortable, with heated cushions, back air conditioning, preferably a fan on top, plus massage functions. The master of destruction clenched her fists, swearing that she was already controlling herself very well. In this sunless dungeon, she had spent 1,000 years, and someone breaking in wanting to take her out should have been a touching gesture. Considering this feeling of touch and acknowledging her own helplessness, she wanted this guy to leave this dangerous place. But now, she really wanted to slap this guy to death. She truly did. Have you said enough? The girl in the black dress spoke with an icy tone at its extreme. If you have, then take your boring ideas and leave immediately. Almost, that's my request. Remember to add all these features when you build that throne for me, as it should be fitting for the identity of the sect hierarch of the hustlers. Right? Su Qi looked at the girl in the black dress and said, just deduct it from the part about the extra payment. The girl in the black dress was momentarily lost. The part about extra payment? That is to say, she pursed her lips lightly. You got one thing wrong, master of destruction, classmate. Su Qi gently extended his hand and held the ancient god's heart in it. Death and the old days had already been collected, and with his other hand, he took out an eye, where abnormal power and the essence of the ancient god mingled. Abyss progress plus 130. Abyss progress plus 134. Abyss progress plus 132. The pendant on his body glowed brightly, his eyes as if they could see everything. Since I could guess those hard-to-guess poker cards, how could I not know what you're thinking? Master of Destruction bit her lip. Had she been seen through? But where was the poker card hard to guess? And the next moment, the evil god's eye was devoured by the ancient god's heart, and the abnormal essence burst forth violently. The surrounding black fog surged along with it. Abyss progress plus 21,341. What in the world is this? Master of Destruction's eyes widened, disbelief in her gaze. That heart, they both possessed extraordinary aura, especially the eye with its terrifying abyss power, which made the surrounding black fog tremble and howl madly. Su Qi watched this scene, contemplating. This power indeed relates to the old days. An evil god seems a bit different. Being the only divine being suppressed in the abyss is also normal. Su Qi aimed to complete his class transition with this momentum, and thoroughly deprive this eye of its power for his own use, otherwise keeping it there felt insecure. At the same time, he also created a way out for this person. What are you going to do? That thing is extremely dangerous. Your body can't withstand its power. The girl in the black dress watched the ancient god's heart pulsating non-stop, her eyelashes trembling, feeling Su Qi's next move. And as the master of destruction said, the mingling powers above, especially the spiritual pressure bursting forth from both the evil god's eye and the ancient god's heart, merely holding it in his palm had already carved blood marks on Su Qi's body. That's not necessarily so. Su Qi took the ancient god's heart, which had collected death, old days, and the abyss, and suddenly pressed it towards his chest. Boom! Class transition is beginning. Warning! The power of the ancient relic is too vast. Current stage players cannot withstand it. And at the same time, Su Qi silently activated a skill. Unrivaled. Metal pipes covered the walls. Electricity sizzled in the hollow space. A large number of mutants were fearfully watching the figure in the distance at this moment. Holding a long axe, with robust veins on his arms, the aura emanating from his body emitted waves of spiritual pressure. He sat on the 1,000 steps leading to the exit. Squinting, he did not make a move. And the 5 players gripped their weapons with highly solemn expressions, watching it intensely. Supervisor. They had reached the first level, which was also the last barrier to leaving this prison. Numerous maintainers also emerged from all directions, their gazes filled with various emotions. Mockery, coldness, abnormality. It was as if they were watching dead men struggle, seemingly the end predetermined. The supervisor also silently watched them, his eyes devoid of emotional fluctuations, like watching rats. The oppressive aura filled every corner of this space. All the mutants and players felt a heaviness sinking into their hearts. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth, blood vessels popping in his eyes, and shouted, "Attack!" There was nothing to hesitate about. This was a battle to the death. They would either escape or die here. The maintainers also laughed excitedly and charged. The battle instantly erupted. The 5 players did not move. They watched the supervisor, and the supervisor also watched them, his gaze revealing an interested expression. Interesting. Although you haven't officially entered the sequence, you already possess spiritual energy. Not bad at all. And his gaze slightly flickered, staring at Sword White Clothes. There's even a naturally strong individual among you. Sword White Clothes listened to the other's monologue. He gave no response, and the expressions of the players grew even more solemn. Because the next moment, a deadly chill had already enveloped him. In that case, the supervisor slowly stood up, his massive body rising upright. His robust strength immediately transmitted as he swung his axe onto the ground, smashing a huge pit. Then it revealed a slightly abnormal smile. Then you guys might as well play with me for a while. Chapter 144. Successfully changed professions, but the supervisor stared at the 5 players as it ascended the steps. Its heavy footsteps thundered with formidable strength at every stride. "Let's go," Sword White Clothes said in a deep voice. The 5 players, hearing the intense battle all around them, lifted their feet heavily and began to ascend. The stairs here were long with several platforms for pausing. The mutants and maintainers fighting fiercely below were sufficient. After all, they were not players and stood no chance against the supervisor. "The opponent is very strong," the scarred youth whispered. "Extremely strong." He had previously seen the energy contained within the opponent's body, the so-called spiritual power. And now, even though he had completed the trial and gained some spiritual power, significantly enhancing his strength, he still felt an immense sense of oppression. Their eyes were grave. They were people who had just completed the job transition trials. Except for Chung Feng, everyone's strength had obviously increased since they were all beta players, able to grasp spiritual power and familiarize themselves with the profession's traits instantly. The opponent's strength might be at the 7th rank. The man spoke solemnly, "But we are not without chances. In this Abyssal Paradise game, as long as you could inflict fatal damage, you could whittle down the opponent's vitality, and even if there was a vast gap in strength, there was a way to triumph. Any attack that can't cause fatal damage will merely deplete the opponent's physical strength and spiritual power. Everyone must. Sword White Clothes suddenly stopped. He noticed the supervisor looking at them with a strange laugh, the axe slightly lifting 2 centimeters, and its footsteps getting heavier, stepping on the edge of the steps. Sword White Clothes' pupils constricted. His expression shifted slightly, and he shouted, "It's coming!" No sooner had he spoken. The very next moment, the supervisor's axe flew out directly with astonishing rotation and speed, rapidly approaching to strike them. "Be careful!" Their faces changed, and they leapt to dodge the attack. Boom! The axe flew through the air, slicing the steps as easily as cutting through tofu with its sharp blade. Ha ha ha! The supervisor laughed eerily. Quite a quick reaction. Attack! Without any hesitation, Sword White Clothes pushed off with his foot and rushed towards the supervisor, sword in hand. Sun Xiaohuan's flying knife was thrown laterally and supported from mid-air at high speed, targeting the vulnerable fatal points. The other 3 charged into battle as well. One-on-one offered no chance of victory. It was only through utmost cooperation that there was a glimmer of hope. Such a swift counterattack, huh? The supervisor's blood pulsed in its veins. It scoffed with a smirk. But far too slow. It suddenly extended its fist, bursting forth, concentrating spiritual power into it and aimed directly at Sword White Clothes, who was rushing the fastest. Its other hand didn't pause either, clutching at the air. From afar, the axe trembled slightly, then lifted off the ground and spun back on its original course. "Forget what's behind," the man shouted, activating his skills and equipment. His purple-black plate armor materialized, and a skill formed a sturdy layer of stone on top of it. He threw himself towards the axe. Bang! The man and the axe collided violently, both sent flying. Interesting. Instead, the supervisor laughed, missing its axe, but surely its fists weren't just for show? Its fist thundered down toward Sword White Clothes. "No need to dodge. I'll handle it." The scarred youth extended his hand, and his skill activated. Mirrored Flower Water Moon. Function. Rapidly generates a mirror, which blocks incoming attacks and reflects the strength back. If exceeded, the skill fails. Looking at the sudden appearance of the mirror, the supervisor did not halt, its voice tinged with interest. "Interesting. You really are interesting." It hit the mirror. With a bang, the mirror shattered. The force within the mirror recoiled back, but it made the supervisor take a step back. At the same time, Sword White Clothes, Cheng Feng, and Sun Xiaohuan also closed in. Long sword, spear, and flying knife, all covered with spiritual power, burst forth in unison with astonishing power. Without any verbal coordination, they all attacked different vital points. "What are you thinking?" The supervisor's tone turned icy within a moment. It exploded with spiritual power, twisting its body. The spear was brutally seized. The flying knife sliced through the flesh, leaving only a trail of blood during the burst. Only Sword White Clothes' long sword made the supervisor's eyelid twitch slightly, choosing to dodge instead. It snorted coldly, "Get lost!" Around the supervisor, the blood vessels seemed to constantly pulsate more rapidly. Even the heartbeat was audible. Bang! Just like that, it generated an immense force that knocked everyone away. With a bizarre laugh, the supervisor called, "Axe, come!" The deflected axe spiraled through the air and once again landed in its grasp. "Not bad, not bad. A bit interesting now. I hope you can last a bit longer." The 5 people's faces turned slightly grim, all silently picking up their weapons and preparing for battle. It was previously stated, Level 10 is when a player leaves the newbie protection period. Therefore, job transition allows players to officially step out of the newcomer's village and qualify to explore the outside world. Right now, Su Qi activated Unrivaled, and on his attribute panel, his strength, movement technique, and physical strength all changed. But that wasn't the main thing. As mentioned before, the strength of the spiritual body primarily relies on the spiritual attribute, and although the evil god's eye was swallowed by the heart, the effect did not disappear. His spiritual power was nearing 300,000. This terrifying figure made Su Qi feel an astounding strength in his spiritual body. Integrating spiritual ability points. Please note, spiritual ability points and the ancient relic will create a channel within you, establishing a connection. After the connection is formed, class change is successful. If the spiritual ability points are used up or the connection to the ancient relic is severed, the class change fails. Su Qi felt the spiritual ability points continuously integrating into his body and immediately sensed a low humming sound, like a roar, a screech. The strength of the ancient relic itself affected the difficulty of the class change. The most important thing was, Su Qi had also stuffed the evil god's eye into it, not on a whim, but after prepared research with his ability to see unknowns. The most powerful feature of the ancient god's heart was its inclusiveness. Originally, it was in a world filled with pollution, absorbing a vast number of pollutants. And then, it devoured the ancient relic, the phoenix feather, obtained from the Lin Yuan land. So, Su Qi had a bold and dangerous idea. He wanted to seal the evil god's eye within the ancient god's heart, completely turning it into a part of himself. The strange power that was bursting from the evil god's eye was formidable. It continuously spewed out shrieks, hums, and spiritual pollution. Although Su Qi was affected and struck by it, causing his entire brain to ache, he wasn't panicked. Can't my 300,000 spiritual power suppress you? He slowly opened his eyes, and the black fog had been drawn over, bearing the old day's aura over the evil god's eye, causing internal strife. Some of the black fog still desperately defended, while other parts hesitated, ready to betray. Not a bad trend. He turned his head and almost jumped in shock. Why the hell are you standing so close? The Master of Destruction was standing right behind him at a very close distance, her cold eyes fixed intently on him. Are you that despicable minion of the old evil god? No, Su Qi wanted to say. Don't talk about my evil god bro like that. But noticing the real emotional fluctuations and the dangerous aura in the Master of Destruction's eyes, he understood that now was not the time for jokes. Lies. The voice of the Master of Destruction became even colder, her eyes gleaming with vigilance and caution. If not, how could you possibly have its eye, with its power sealed inside? Power surpasses unique traits. It's the one-of-a-kind strength every divine has. Unless it is someone extremely trusted, it would never be given to a second person. That's my number one brother. You still owe a debt. How can you speak like that? However, Su Qi knew that the god of destruction had become extremely dangerous at this moment, as she appeared to want to suppress him. Yet her fingers trembled slightly, clearly struggling within. It seemed that the evil god was quite special, even among the other divines. He was an extremely dangerous entity, as the others seemed to be on the ancient battlefield. Only my evil god bro, alone and sealed, with the abyss at his back. Calm down. I've already told you I'm not a minion of the evil god. Su Qi decided to lay his cards on the table. When you go out, you can ask about the despicable person, and you'll understand, we share a vendetta that cannot coexist under the same sky. Of course, that vendetta mostly came from my evil god bro. I'm more filled with gratitude. The Master of Destruction stared into Su Qi's eyes, her long lashes coupled with her dazzling eyes, seemingly assessing the truth behind Su Qi's words. Su Qi stretched out his hand and turned the Master of Destruction's head to the side. Stop looking, my girl. Sincerity is my main selling point. In the whole world, only he would dare to do so. Before the Master of Destruction could explode, Su Qi spoke softly, and, time is of the essence. I can only maintain this situation for a short time. Only by riding on the momentum of the ancient god's class change, the old day's momentum, the evil god's power, combined with the surging spiritual ability points and unrivaled strength, was he able to draw in the surrounding black fog. Unrivaled, perhaps due to the spiritual body status, extended some time, but it was not enough. Feeling the terrible beating in his chest, although he could still speak calmly at this moment. His face had already shown a bit of pallor. That evil god's eye is harder to suppress than I imagined. Su Qi took a deep breath, looked towards the black fog. No time left. I'm heading outside to alleviate its power with the old days and help you break this fog. The rest shouldn't be a problem for you. A crucial condition for class change is that the spiritual body needs to return to the body for the class change to succeed. Without any hesitation, Su Qi leaped up and burst forth with astonishing speed towards the outside. The Master of Destruction watched Su Qi's retreating figure, slowly retracting her gaze to look at the horizon swallowed by the black fog. The dangerous abyss, the old gods that bring about the obliteration of all things, have left the ancient mythic epics blank for thousands of years. Her eyes became complex. I hope you truly haven't lied to me. At this moment, Su Qi's speed was incredibly fast. Massive waves of black fog rushed directly towards him. He must make every second count. The evil god's eye was being sealed by the ancient god and the spiritual ability points in a crazy synergy, forming seals to keep it trapped there forever. At the same time, spiritual ability points were also inch by inch forging a path. He had already felt a strange power. Is this the so-called spiritual energy? Boom! Boom! The black fog surged turbulently around Su Qi, his heart pounding thunderously with each beat, putting enormous pressure on his body. Success was within reach. The next moment, he suddenly burst out of the black fog's range. At the same time, the ancient god's heart forcibly merged a large number of spiritual ability points, subduing the struggling evil god's eye. Unrivaled had 5 seconds left. Su Qi charged straight for his own body. In the last 2 seconds, Su Qi collided fiercely into his own embrace. Spiritual body and body merged, class change successful. Your profession path as an old dusk has undergone unpredictable changes due to various factors. The current profession system cannot find the related sequence, unable to provide any naming. Please decide for yourself. Decide for myself? Su Qi lay behind the rocks, falling into a brief silence. Chapter 145. Job Change Traits. Do I have to name it myself? Isn't this too ceremonious? Right now, his unrivaled power had just ended, and he was trapped in a period of weakness, unable to recover for 10 minutes. He was thinking. Boom, boom, boom. The black fog was booming. He looked toward the black fog. At this moment, the massive black fog was a mess due to his interference, most of it darting around chaotically as if it had crashed. If she doesn't come out now, I'll start to question her intelligence. Su Qi muttered to himself. You! A voice, calm yet carrying an unmistakable chill and danger, rang beside his ear. Who are you talking about? Su Qi's eyelids twitched. He looked around but saw no figure. However, he felt an undetectable fluctuation. He hadn't expected the Master of Destruction to be able to hear. Children, remember not to speak ill of others behind their back. This also indirectly proved that the ancient mists were full of holes. Her power could seep through these gaps, and it was only a matter of time before she would free herself. You heard wrong, he said, looking at a rock beside him. I was talking to my pet, Xiao Chong. The Master of Destruction coldly said, Once you escape, stay away from here. I will cause an extremely strong fluctuation if I act. All right, but I have a question. Speak. What do you think? Cheerful sect leader, the great compassionate hustler, world's MLM master. Which sounds better? None sound good. Oh. Lacks taste. Su Qi, hearing the Master of Destruction grit her teeth, struggled to get up with only 10 points of physical strength, plus his extremely low vitality and the sense of being drained of so much power. His movements were uncontrollably wobbly. Her tone slightly sharp. She asked, Are you injured? Just side effects of the power. Did you think activating Unrivaled was easy? The tone of the Master of Destruction softened a bit. She calmly said, Then you should find a hole and bury yourself to hide. I can already feel that a battle is occurring in the uppermost space. Though it's merely a lifting hand matter for me, it poses a fatal risk to you in your current weakened state. Su Chi paused briefly, but then he understood. My good teammates haven't been wiped out yet. He was about to ask the Master of Destruction to check the situation over there. But her power fluctuation had also dissipated, seeming unstable. Something simpler is better then. Su Chi entered the Hustler, a tag exclusively his own, self-created by him. This unique sequence was unprecedented and offered no experience guides to obtain any strategies. The path ahead also remained an uncharted murky future. He was just beginning the first step. How far could he go? For Su Chi, it was never something to consider. He was only concerned about how far these worlds could support him. New profession sequence confirmed name. The Hustler. Player profession change successful. Exclusive profession panel is updating. Su Chi looked at the prompt box, feeling a powerful aura abruptly filling his heart and pulsing continuously, his blood surging. Medically speaking, this would be diagnosed as high blood pressure and tachycardia, resulting in palpitations. He looked at his new profession panel. ID, Su Buxian. Level, 20. Profession, the Hustler, unranked, no ascension path. Current sequence, 109, spiritual power has exceeded 1,000 points, has automatically ascended. Attribute increase, strength 1,000%, movement technique 1,000%, physical strength 1,000%, spiritual power 1,000%. Activated when using ancient relic, consuming spiritual energy. Spiritual power, 2239, composed by physical strength, spiritual power, current sequence, spiritual ability points, etc. Traits. Divine Heart. 1. Tolerance. You will have an extra trait. 2. Pulse. All resistances increase by 20%. In combat state, you will randomly acquire one attribute. Please note, special ability will advance and evolve with ascension. Su Chi's eyes slightly widened. Can I still choose traits? As everyone knows, each player has and only has one trait. While the abilities generated by traits are not unique, they all stem from branches extended from the trait. Like the two above, no matter how they change, they cannot deviate from the scope of the ancient relic. But to be able to possess additional traits, that was entirely different. Isn't this basically cheating? As a player committed to a fair gaming environment, how can one tolerate such a loophole? Let me take a look at the other two traits first. Current options. Trait I, Undying Bird. 1. Tenacity will have strong life recovery ability. 2. Death Corridor. Activating this ability will leave an anchor point at the area. Any death within 10 minutes. The body will return to the position of the anchor point. Trait 2, Spiritual Eyes. 1. Echo. When allocating points, spiritual power will increase other attributes threefold. 2. Concrete. Can create illusions within the eye, depending on the difference in spiritual power between the parties, the degree of belief of the target, environmental mimicry, logical surroundings, etc. Can materialize and produce attributes and power. The first type, it seems to be a trait left by the phoenix feather. This thing was not simple. The ancient god's heart is very picky. The ancient relics chosen by it almost always have a high level. The below, Spiritual Eyes. Originally from the evil god's eyes. Su Chi paused. Oh, almost forgot. It doesn't have anything to do with evil god anymore. After all, this is now my ability. Su Chi hesitated no more and directly chose the latter. The profession traits. They generally have two abilities. One is passive, the other is active. The passive and active of the Undying Bird indeed look good, but currently they definitely can't compare to the abilities of the Spiritual Eyes. Chapter 146. The passive skill that distributed points. For Su Chi had become an absolutely crucial attribute. Its potential for growth could not be left blank, though Ascension would grant an ability increase. But who knew what the requirements for the next level of Ascension were, or if ascending to the next sequence would grant additional traits. No matter what he chose, Spiritual Eyes were his top priority. When Su Chi finished making his selection, he felt a surge of new power within his pupils. There are a lot of things that seem worth trying. Su Qi looked at the countdown until the side effects ended, then walked towards the twisted space illusion. Boom! The man was sent flying, crashing into the stairs, his body covered in wounds, blood gushing out. The scarred youth and Cheng Feng were both on the verge of death. Sun Xiaohuan was gasping for air. His flying knives had already dropped quite a few, and his face was pale. Spiritual power, physical strength, neither is enough. They had just completed their role upgrade. Their spiritual power had only just reached around 100 to 200 points, far from sufficient. They opted to drag things out using skills and equipment for a while, but they had also reached their limit. Sword White Clothes stood on the platform covered in blood. He was a priority target for the supervisor. The cold gleam of his sword blades had not yet dissipated. He looked around, falling into silence. The confrontation between the mutants and the maintainers had escalated, but it dragged on and on. They had no escape, nor could they rush to the exit, trapped amidst it all. And the 5 of them were at a complete disadvantage. The supervisor carried an axe. The back of the axe slammed to the ground with a thud, scattering broken stones around. It was also bleeding but seemed unconcerned. "What's the matter? You all seem to have lost your fighting spirit." The group remained silent. It touched its wound with a hand, digging out flesh and blood, and licked it with a strange smile on its face. "Should I say or not, you guys still have something? Just having stepped onto the path of the sequence and you've managed to hurt me." Silently, Sword White Clothes observed the wound on its body. They had managed to hurt it, but that was all they did. The only more serious wound was the result of their combined effort, a desperate final burst of attack. But still, they could not defeat it. No way. The opponent's strength was of Sequence 8, and their current spiritual power didn't even meet the standards of Sequence 9. From every aspect, they were far inferior to the opponent. "You guys, back off a bit," Sword White Clothes said with a subdued voice. "What are you going to do?" Sun Xiaohuan felt a certain solemnity. Sword Seeker embodies the sword, and what it's best at is a desperate gamble. The mark on Sword White Clothes' forehead was flickering. He was furiously pumping his remaining spiritual power into it. The air around him began to convene and fluctuate, continuously producing sword qi. The platform under his feet and Sword White Clothes himself were torn open. "Brother Jian, you're bleeding." Cheng Feng's eyes widened. Sword White Clothes of course knew, but he did not stop. As the leader of Sword Flower, with astonishing talent and a precious hidden ancient relic, he would never give up easily in any so-called desperate situation. Of course, Su Qi was an exception. The weapon type series, so proficient just after stepping in. The supervisor squinted at his sword that seemed like it had been unsheathed, with cold light surging. "You truly are, among these 5, the strongest potential." But it revealed a ferocious smile. "It's useless. Petty fights always give the weak the illusion that they can defeat the strong. Now, let me show you what's called power." Sword White Clothes moved. A ripple of air burst from where he stood. Man and sword seemed as one, speeding forward, forming a visible stream of sword qi. An unbearable screech of friction erupted from within. Sword White Clothes suffered backlash, with spiritual energy surging wildly. His vitality and physical strength plummeted rapidly. But he did not hesitate or pause. "Come on." The supervisor picked up his axe, eyed it coldly, smashed the platform beneath its feet, and charged forward. Ridiculous final gambles. With this axe strike, it would sever his all-out attack. And then, with fresh blood, utterly end this feast. The axe infused with astonishing spiritual energy collided with the sword qi. It was a clash between 2 traits, a contest of spiritual energy. But as always, the weaker side loses. Boom! With a sound, the sword qi held only for a mere 5 seconds before it shattered. Sword White Clothes turned pale as the surging spiritual energy backlashed. His vitality plummeted to the bottom instantly. He himself was sent flying out. "Brother Jian." Chang Feng's eyelids quivered. Although prepared, who the hell doesn't harbor a bit of hope? Even a faint one. But now there was no hope left. The five of them had no chance. This is it, we're completely done. Even though death would return them to their personal login space with increasing strength levels, the penalties for dying would become more severe. And the feeling of real touch was a very heavy matter in itself. Let's end it then. The supervisor also swung his axe up, sneered coldly. Prey without the will to fight was boring. It was time for slaughter. These fellows' energy of despair would surely flow into the deep ancient mists. It was all just a cycle after all. No one could escape. And just as the supervisor moved to step forward, ready to end it all with fresh blood, it raised its axe, but the step suddenly stopped because a set of footsteps was approaching from afar. A young man was walking up the stairs. Chang Feng looked over, his expression stunned. His mouth opened, but he didn't know how to break the palpable, somber atmosphere. Chapter 147. The other people's gazes gathered on him. Sun Xiaohuan looked surprised. He hadn't expected to see an acquaintance here. This figure slowly walked to the side of Sword White Clothes, who lay collapsed on the steps. Su Buxian, it's you. Sword White Clothes weakly lifted his eyes, extremely feeble. You survived? Huh. But sorry. Looks like you're going to die now. That sounded just like a villain. Su Qi flashed a smile. Then do you have any last words? Like turning Swordflower into a subordinate organization of the Hustlers Club, or entrusting me with important equipment. I can fulfill those wishes for you. Eft. Sword White Clothes suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. It wasn't because of Su Qi's words. He was genuinely spitting blood. This guy was now utterly drained, health, spiritual energy, physical strength all reduced to a state a mere slap could end. Su Buxian, act like a human. Chang Feng somehow mustered the strength to quip. Is now really the time for jokes? Besides, can't you see the situation we're in? We're all doomed. Su Qi paused. I'm also surprised. I deliberately slowed down my steps, but I still arrived early. You guys are somehow still alive. Damn! Chang Feng couldn't help but feel like punching someone and looked at the supervisor. You damn cat! Start moving! Chop him up! Supervisor? How had the heavy atmosphere just changed upon this person's arrival? And its eyes turned cold, a murderous intent enveloping Chang Feng. Are you teaching me how to do my job? But don't worry, nobody's going to escape. You'll all die under my axe. Chang Feng shuddered, the snark he wanted to unleash forcibly suppressed. Su Qi shook his head. Since we are screwed anyway, why be a wimp? Why not throw some tough words before you die? Curse its ancestors for 18 generations, and won't you feel exhilarated when you go back to your personal space? Chang Feng paused. Good idea. Su Qi then looked toward the supervisor. Of course, while he's cursing, you can also stuff his mouth or plug your own ears. This method never fails. Hey! The supervisor was silent for a moment. The other players were all braced for battle, tense and fearful. Yet this rat, popping up from nowhere, seemed unaware of its power, causing it some confusion. Sorry. This boring hunt needs to end. It stared at Su Qi with those chilling eyes, the axe held in its hands. I need to finish you off and then report back. The next moment, the supervisor suddenly charged, the huge axe in its hands swinging with a whoosh that sliced through the air, aimed directly at Su Qi and Sword White Clothes. As Su Qi looked at Sword White Clothes, lend me your sword. You can use a sword? Of course. Su Qi had already picked up the long sword, gripping the blade with his palm. Sword White Clothes suddenly got an uneasy feeling. Su Qi then stepped back slightly, swung his arm backward, then, under Sword White Clothes' shocked gaze, he threw it like a javelin. Everyone was stunned. So this was his idea of using it. The next moment, the whole long sword, moving incredibly fast, generated intense electric sparks that crackled wildly, leaving terrifying trails. The supervisor's eyelids twitched. It sensed a strange spiritual energy, a dangerous and deadly feeling. How can this be? It swung its axe to intercept it, but it was too slow. Crack! The supervisor's body was viciously penetrated by the incredibly fast sword. The horrific thunder burst forth instantly. Rumble, rumble, forming a continuous clatter. Everyone was dumbfounded. Su Qi was slightly stupefied too. So strong. Electric sparks still flickered over his palm. This was Pulse. He had acquired a random thunder attribute in battle which could attach and create independently. His first time using it. He hadn't expected it to be so powerful. Su Qi didn't forget to pat the stunned sword White Clothes on the shoulder. This sword technique, named Heavenly Flying Immortal, wanna learn it? I can teach you. Chang Feng roared. What does this have to do with sword fighting? Although Sword White Clothes felt some heartache for his long sword, he suddenly realized something and hurriedly said, "Be careful. Don't get distracted." The supervisor's body was charred black and suddenly burst forth, stomping on the ground and rushing over with disheveled hair. Seeking death. Seeking death. Very meaty. All the monsters in the game. As long as the body is big enough, they are all pretty meaty. It's very powerful. We can't clash head-on. Sun Xiaohuan quickly warned. No worries. It's not a big issue. Su Qi activated the Divine Heart. All attributes were boosted by 10 times in an instant, and the sound was also raised, followed by the sound of the past. Then he placed his palm on his chest. What are you doing? Chang Feng was slightly stunned by this scene. You can think of it as me praying to the thunder gods. Is praying now going to do any good? Chang Feng widened his eyes. But the next moment, Su Qi's body twinkled with electric light. His hair stood on end, and lightning seemed to flow on every inch of his skin. His blood seemed to be gushing at high speed. This was the true power of the pulse. He could use various attributes to create different kinds of battles. Everyone stared blankly at Su Qi. Which one are you praying to? Su Qi smiled and said, Thunder God and Lightning Mother and Faraday. And in an instant, Su Qi disappeared from his spot. Wherever he passed, there was lightning. Come on! The supervisor growled lowly, watching Su Qi approaching with flashing lightning, striking with full force. Incredible spiritual energy continuously gathered, ready to unleash a terrifying blow. Everyone's eyelids twitched. They could confirm that when the supervisor had fought with them just now, it definitely hadn't used its full strength. The pressure from the gathered spiritual energy had already cracked the ground around them. Be careful! But the next moment, Su Qi didn't hesitate to initiate blinding. The supervisor's entire head burst into a roar, suffering a spiritual impact. In that instant, all its senses were blocked. Spiritual attack? However, being a 7th-rank powerhouse, the supervisor obviously knew how to break through this trick, fiercely gritted its teeth, and spiritual energy impacted its head again, making it regain consciousness. It stared intensely at Su Qi. The axe was fiercely raised. The atmospheric pressure was bursting. The surrounding air tightened noticeably, and a strong wind hit them. Is this the real strength of 7th rank? Very strong. But compared to the giant they had faced before, it was still a big notch below, let alone unrivaled. Yet Su Qi also didn't dodge or retreat, his pupils flickering. A large number of birds filled with lightning shot out from behind him, all heading toward the supervisor. Spiritual eyes. Phantom manifestation. The supervisor shuddered. It had already suffered that terrifying paralysis and pain before, and now so many thunderbirds even gave it a subconscious fear. The gap in spiritual power between it and its psychological state determined the power of the thunderbirds. Boom! Many thunderbirds exploded violently. When it swung its axe down, it missed. But Su Qi didn't come away empty-handed. The 100-man slaughter blade pierced through its heart, and terrifying lightning directly penetrated through, hitting the ground behind it. The supervisor's eyes were filled with a deathly stillness and daze. Save me! It muttered 2 words from its mouth, not knowing who it was speaking to, and then its body trembled as it knelt down, facing the huge hole blasted by the thunderbolts, its eyes gazing towards the escape exit. "Save me, my lord." But there was no response. Its eyes gradually dimmed, and its body thunderously fell. Chapter 148, Can I Take a Ride? Su Chi watched as the supervisor fell to the ground. His gaze turned toward the exit. "Boss," Su Chi muttered, "don't pull any stunts when the instance is about to end." He looked at the others and pointed at Sword White Clothes. "Quickly save him, or he's going to die. And throw that corpse down to the battlefield below." Chung Feng was startled. "Why?" Su Chi looked at him like he was an idiot. Sword White Clothes weakly opened his mouth. "Once the supervisor dies, the maintainers below will inevitably collapse, and the battle will end." Chung Feng coughed and lifted the supervisor's corpse. "You could have said that earlier. I'll go and end the battle below right away." At this moment, Su Chi's thunder attribute, which pulsed with the end of the battle, turned back into spiritual energy and re-entered his heart, disappearing without a trace. The thunder attribute obtained from this battle gave Su Chi a new understanding of the pulse ability. This attribute wasn't attached to the surface of the body, but burst from the heart, transforming the entire body, every inch of flesh seemingly carrying the thunder attribute altered by spiritual energy. Even for a moment, Su Chi felt his flesh could turn into thunder. Of course, for now it seemed to be just an illusion, given that it was a newly acquired strength, powerful yet unfamiliar, still somewhat alien. However, if I continue on this trend of ascension, perhaps I could possess multiple attributes simultaneously, and my body could transform along with the elements? Becoming light might be right around the corner? Anyway, from what I can see now, the abilities of Divine Heart possess limitless possibilities, and showing good performance is also the manifestation of spiritual eyes. Both are still in the beginning stages, and figuring out their full potential will take some time. We won! We won! At this time, the loud cheers of the mutants could be heard from below. The maintainers, upon seeing the supervisor's corpse, collapsed very quickly, as normally, everyone almost instantly lost the will to fight, going from stupor to scattering and fleeing in less than half a minute. "Don't pursue them." The middle-aged man stopped the other mutants who wanted to give chase. He frowned. "Our priority is to get out of here. Everyone, gather at the exit gate quickly. We'll all push it open together." The mutants immediately began to move. The exit was a huge door, extremely thick and without any mechanical or electronic opening. It could only be opened by pure manpower. This was also why the first thing Su Chi arranged after killing the supervisor was to end the battle. Otherwise, if too many mutants died, they might not even be able to push open this door, making it a hidden difficulty of the second task. Everyone pushed together. People quickly gathered beside the massive exit gate. Every mutant was excited, placing both hands on the door. Push! Everyone strained their muscles, pushing the huge door together. They were just a stone's throw away from escaping to safety. Excitement showed on every face, as if they were about to leave this horrific prison. Crack, crack, crack. The giant door trembled lightly, revealing a crack. Everyone's faces lit up with joy. Quick! Keep pushing. They didn't need to fully open the door, just enough space for everyone to escape through. Su Buxian, put your back into it. Chang Feng, seeing Su Chi standing behind like a supervisor, couldn't help but say, "Even the injured Sword White Clothes is helping. I clocked out after fighting the boss. What's wrong with slacking off a bit?" Su Chi leaned one hand on the rock of the door. "Besides, I'm considering what kind of world is outside this door. Is it really as we speculated, inside the body of a huge monster? Damn, can you think and push at the same time?" It seemed that rushing out so quickly was not necessarily a good thing. Su Chi didn't respond. After all, they still didn't know which one of them was the boss mentioned by the supervisor. He stared at the massive door in front of him, a door that was very old, its surface worn smooth over time, where once there would have been images engraven, but they were eroded by time, leaving no trace. Only he with question mark could see the past messages. Creator, stone giant, number of times opened, 10. The images on the door, marked with the totem of a divine. And I don't recognize it. According to the information Su Chi got from the Master of Destruction, currently, all the divines of all worlds were not present in the present world. Either sealed in the ancient battlefield, not yet recovered, or in the abyss. Even the Master of Destruction of this world was just a spiritual body. Her real body lay asleep in the ancient battlefield, and then she manifested as unity into Trinity, childhood, adolescence, complete form. The childhood spiritual body held the power of reset, taken back by that middle-aged woman and had her memory synchronized. As an adolescent, her spiritual body held 3 other powers. Although powerful, it was only the tip of the iceberg compared to her real strength. Otherwise, how could the ancient mists hold her? Speaking of this, Su Chi suddenly remembered, I almost forgot about her. Hasn't she come out yet? At this moment, with a violent tremor, the giant door was pushed open by everyone, creating a space to go through. Finally, we can leave. Go! The mutants rushed out one after another through the gap, and Su Chi could see behind the gate a large cave corridor, with dim light shining in. That's the exit. Quick! They ran towards with excitement. Let's go out too, the scarred youth said. I'm curious about what's outside too. And just then, the mutants running at the front suddenly stiffened as they turned the corner and then, with a change of expression, they yelled, Hurry! Chapter 149. Get back! But the next moment, it was already too late. A terrifying gust of chaotic wind surged wildly from the front. This horrific blast sent everyone in front flying. The mutants, who hadn't gotten far, were just about to retreat and hide behind the massive door. The middle-aged man seemed to sense the danger and roared, Don't hide behind the door! Boom! The chaotic blast shook the massive door in reverse, knocking it open. The mutants hiding behind the door were also sent flying, spewing fresh blood. Damn! The faces of several players changed. This was terrifying. Fortunately, the intense chaotic blast lasted only a moment, and although the people who were sent flying behind the stairs were injured, they were quickly healed by the mutants with healing abilities. What was that blast all about? Did you just see anything? The mutants at the front now trembled. It seemed like there were 2 terrifying figures fighting outside. We didn't see clearly, only a surge of energy from one of them coming our way. 2 figures were fighting. This was beyond Su Chi's expectation. One of them he could guess. Perhaps it was the supervisor mentioned by the dying supervisor. And the other was... Luckily, the chaotic flow was just an impact from their fight. Although everyone wasn't directly harmed, it also indirectly showed how powerful the opponents were. The rumbling sounds of explosions continued to come through the entrance. No one dared to approach the massive door. Some even felt an ache in their eardrums just listening to the distant sounds of battle, hurriedly blocking their ears. We're not going to be trapped here, are we? Chung Feng said with a wry smile. It shouldn't be. The other 3 players in the closed beta said somberly. This instance isn't playing by the usual rules. The supervisor was killed, they just had to escape, and the second task would be declared complete. But what was the situation now? It is indeed strange. Sword White Clothes, having recovered somewhat after popping a blood medicine, fell into puzzlement and contemplation. If we follow the normal main quest line, such powerful beings shouldn't appear in the outside world. We're all just sacrifices for the feast of consumption. Even if the supervisor is killed, it's probably just small fry that wouldn't make it to the limelight. Brother Su, do you have any ideas? Su Chi coughed. Maybe this is just the difficulty of the Nightmare Dungeon. He of course knew why. It was because he had helped the Master of Destruction break free, drawing out the elder mentioned by the supervisor. From this perspective, that other one, boom! Another terrifying blast, and this time, the sounds of the battle outside faded away like an echo. It seemed the outside had gone silent. Question mark. Has a victor emerged? Everyone's expressions brightened. Yet some were uneasy. The good news was they wouldn't have to face the blasts, and they had a chance to get out. The unease stemmed from the horrifying existences outside. Will that terrifying being leave? Or is it still out there? Anyone want to go check? You go. I'll root for you. And at that moment, the ground suddenly trembled, with a terrifying fluctuation seeming to come from a far-off place below. What's the situation down there now? Chang Feng's eyes widened. Is she finally coming out? Su Qi recognized the aura of the Master of Destruction. To actually transmit through such vast space to this place, she must also be about to break free. Everyone felt a chill down their spine, surrounded by dangers from all sides. Finally, someone said in a deep voice, "Let's go. Everyone together. Better to die outside than to do nothing at all." The faces of the mutants darkened, and then they too stood up one by one. What about us? Chang Feng looked to Su Qi and Sword Whiteclothes. Let's go together. We'll probably know the situation once we get out. Su Qi moved forward, joining the group as they walked together. Outside the cave mouth, there was utter silence. Everyone carefully poked their heads out and looked outside, their expressions turning incredibly blank. On the desolate ground outside, there was a massive vortex passage with ripples. Standing upright in midair, a large number of troops mounted on Pegasi and clad in armor surged out, arranging themselves in midair. More than 10 giant beasts roared as they spilled out from the passage. Totems were manifesting. The reflections shone and flickered in the sky dome. The astonishing aura made everyone tremble, and on the ground were all traces of battle, the corpses of abnormalities that looked similar to supervisors strewn everywhere, and there was a massive being, impaled on a mountain flank by a long spear. The flesh emitted a terrifying spiritual energy, but it was already a corpse. This is the Great One mentioned by the supervisor. Su Qi looked over, and the one who killed it. There were 3 beings filled with the most powerful aura. Quietly standing in midair, they did not speak, but their spiritual energy suffocated everyone who felt it. Su Qi saw critical information above their heads. Priest is a servant directly beneath the divine, a subordinate to a god. Among the ranks of clergy, only second to the bishop. Su Qi had encountered that phantom in Nancy's Love, Death, Superplayer, who was a priest as well, though it might have served another god. These 3 were all priests, and who they were waiting for became quite obvious. The armored female priest's eyes held authority as she looked down at the trembling group and said, "There are still some alive." Everyone was startled. They felt an overwhelming force from those above engulfing them. Sun Xiaohuan suddenly transmitted via telekinesis. "They are looking over here. Don't make eye contact. Maintain reverence. They must be receiving the terrifying entity from the depths of space. It has nothing to do with us. Low beings must not look, must not listen. Bowing is the basic etiquette. Not to displease them, otherwise a single glance could kill us. After all, their power surpasses our imagination." Chang Feng and the others hastily averted their gaze and respectfully lowered their heads. Su Qi glanced at Sun Xiaohuan, noting that this guy had previously claimed to come from paradise and indeed knew more than he had imagined. Chang Feng nudged Su Qi urgently. "Stop looking around. Lower your head." Su Qi did not avert his gaze. Surrounded by a powerful lineup of troops, giant beasts, and manifesting totems, the changes of the totems in the sky dome, the terrifying aura of destruction spread to every corner. A stream of question marks continued to appear. A sea of complex information flooded in, overwhelming him. And most importantly, there were exclamation point on one of the Western dragons, deep crimson. Riding it for 10 minutes might lead to a reward. The scene was dominated by powerful beings, including the dragon. It breathed out hot air, its flames almost melting the mountain, and its power was extraordinary, with the exclamation point also highlighting the high level of danger. And then, the 3 priests looked down upon Su Qi, who had raised his head. A weak mortal who has just stepped into the sequence. Somewhat disrespectful. However, the gaze is odd. Another female priest pushed her gold-rimmed glasses up, holding a long ruler in her hand, and silently said. His gaze shifted up 25.37 degrees, seemingly looking at the tops of people's heads. Can you clear the area before the Lord comes? The armored priest asked calmly. I fear they might disrespect the Lord later. An insignificant little fellow. I will warn them, said the robed female priest with a light laugh, her voice reaching everyone's ears, including Su Qi's. You may leave from here. Retreat a kilometer. Do not listen, speak, or look. Only after the return may you depart. Everyone's faces brightened with joy. Indeed, these high beings did not care about them. As long as they showed reverence and did not misbehave, they could survive. We thank the three lords for your leniency. Sun Xiaohuan and Sword White Clothes, among others, immediately expressed their thanks. They knew the ones before them were untouchable personages, and their statuses as super rookies and beta players would not help. Let's go. Hurry. Numerous mutants immediately acted as instructed. Cheng Feng also hurriedly followed, but halfway through, he suddenly realized, wait, where's Su Buxian? He looked back. Su Qi was not with them but standing in place. He considered his second mission. Retreating a kilometer was actually considered a successful escape, and although there was a 10-minute teleportation window provided, he would inevitably miss the dragon. It was a pity. Wasn't that guy coming out yet? No, once she came out, his third mission would be considered complete, and he was counting on a free meal and drink. It seemed he had to deal with it himself. Su Qi felt their gazes beginning to shift. He raised his head and said, Great lords, I have a small request. Everyone's eyes widened. What the hell were you doing? He extended his palm and produced a jade gemstone he had secretly snatched from the Master of Destruction's throne, dazzling and precious, not to mention filled with the heavy aura of destruction. Could I exchange this for a 10-minute dragon ride? Chapter 150 Instance ends. Su Qi was sitting atop a giant dragon, the wild wind whistling for 300 miles, as they flew amidst the sky dome. Three priests remained silent, looking at the jade gemstone in their hands. This was the very trade item that the mortal had just pulled out, as easy as inserting a coin into a playground machine at the supermarket entrance, in exchange for some playtime. The priest clad in armor silently watched the dragon in the sky. I don't understand why you would satisfy his request, even though he holds a gemstone with his highness's essence, but it's possible he merely found it. The spectacled priest's eyes flickered with a reddish-white glow as she softly spoke. Found it? Sister Ella, what kind of joke is this? This jade gemstone comes from the throne, which I personally designed for His Highness, and the location of the throne is right in the middle of the sealed ancient mists. If the mists hadn't been cracked open this time, letting His Highness's strength transmit out and establish a connection with us, it would have been impossible to find this place. Her gaze settled on Su Qi. Such a feeble mortal, yet able to obtain it. The most likely explanation is that it was a boon from His Highness. Master of Destruction? How come I don't know this? Of course, if we guessed wrong, it's not a big deal, she said calmly, pushing her glasses up her nose. The Earth Fire Giant Dragon will take him far from the ground, heading toward the Sky Dome, if he has nothing to do with His Highness. Even though the Fire Dragon won't kill him directly, he'll have to at least consider how to land. 5 players 1,000 meters away looked up at the giant dragon in the sky. Cheng Feng said blankly, Su Buxian actually got on it. He watched the dragon flap its wings and soar through the heavens, gritting his teeth. I'm so jealous. No, what nonsense. Sun Xiaohuan also silently observed the scene. It had only been 3 days since last seeing Su Buxian yawning while fighting the night demon. Now he was already riding a dragon. Something felt off. Sword White Clothes fell silent. He seemed to understand why Su Buxian, a remarkably bold man who had met with a group of super rookies, not only possessed extraordinary courage but also unfathomable strength. At the same time, he understood why Su Buxian's ranking was so low, disregarding the main storyline, acting brazenly, even challenging the limits of teammates and enemies, haphazardly dealing with nightmare-level challenges. At that moment, boom! The entire mountain range in front of them began to shake. This was the colossal mountain range that covered the chaotic sea. They hadn't taken a close look when they emerged. When the mountains started to quake, they looked on in terror. What is this? The mountain range stretched unbroken, with forests, streams, and rocky hills merely clinging to its surface. As it trembled, it seemed to reveal the true shape of this enormous creature. A gargantuan turtle-like beast with a continent-sized shell. An ancient creature with exceptional traits, bearing marks of the old days. The long-robed priest quietly gazed at the great creature. No wonder why we couldn't find the trace of His Highness's second spiritual body back then. Is it still sleeping? Perhaps it will awaken only when the abyss opens. The three priests stopped discussing this ancient creature. The scent of destruction was spreading. The totems in the sky dome began to spin and shimmer, and Boundless Might stirred up a tempest. His Highness has arrived. Their expressions slowly shifted, a mix of reverence, joy, but mostly curiosity. We have yet to see His Highness in his youth. Last time Chiron returned His Highness in his juvenile form, she kept bragging about how cute His Highness was as a child. That smug showing off was really irritating. Luckily, she's not here today. Can we sneak a picture later? Priest Ella calmly advised. I urge you not to be too presumptuous. Memories will be synchronized. When His Highness recovers in the future, you will be held accountable. Do you want a picture? All their conversations were through spiritual communication, so no need to worry about being overheard. But at that moment, a shiver ran through them as a piercing spiritual energy came into their ears. Do you think that I can't hear you right now? The three priests' faces changed as they looked toward the sky dome, where a figure stood midair, the space around them twisting. They quickly bowed respectfully. We welcome His Highness. The army of sequencers all knelt on the ground. We welcome our Lord. People a kilometer away trembled, and the mutant without hesitation also bowed their heads, kneeling to the ground. Do we need to kneel as well? Chang Feng coughed, but Sword White Clothes was already half kneeling on the ground. Brother Jian. Chang Feng widened his eyes. In his view, Sword White Clothes was a proud and dignified future powerhouse, yet he knelt so quickly. Sword White Clothes shook his head. That totem signifies that the other party is a divine. Mortals naturally need to perform a half-kneeling ritual to a god. It's that strict. Chang Feng was slightly stunned. The other three internal test players also half-kneeled on the ground, bowing their heads with respect. Sun Xiaohuan said, This is something you must understand after entering paradise. One will come into contact with high beings, especially divine entities. And we, being in a lesser position, must comply. Chang Feng half-knelt on the ground. I kind of get it now, and I can understand. It's like raising a toast to the leader, but I just want to ask one question. Where is Su Buxian? What's his deal? At this moment, Su Qi was up in the sky dome, surrounded by roaring winds, yet with spiritual energy to shield him. He would not be swept away directly. It seemed that spiritual energy had many uses, being semi-datafied and semi-practical. However, he could only cover his body or weapon surface with spiritual energy for now. He couldn't yet release it outward. Chapter 151. All 3 tasks have been completed. Now all we need to do is wait until the transfer time ends, and that should be it. Below, the Master of Destruction silently lifted her head to gaze at the sky dome shrouded in clouds and opened with a calm voice. Why is he riding a dragon? The bespectacled priest's eyes lit up slightly. Her guess was correct, and by the tone, it seems she even really knows him. She quickly extended her hand, revealing the brilliantly dazzling gemstone. Your Highness, it's like this. This person has a gemstone from your throne. We believe it was bestowed upon him by you. Considering his request was not excessive, we took the liberty of agreeing to it. The Master of Destruction spoke through gritted teeth with an icy tone. Bestowed? On him. She had said to herself that when she wanted to reclaim her throne after shattering the ancient mists, suddenly something felt different. At the armrest, a full 8 gemstones were gone. That bastard, using my things to trade with my priest, and having a grand time doing it. Your Highness. Sensing the dangerous aura of the god of destruction, the expressions of several priests tightened a bit. Although they were only spiritual bodies and their strength had not been restored, they had all witnessed the terrifying strength of the Master of Destruction in her full form. I apologize for overstepping, Your Highness. I will kill him immediately, the bespectacled priest said, not daring to look at the Master of Destruction, and decided to rectify the situation immediately. She was about to take action, but the Master of Destruction calmly said, No need. I'll do it myself. Her entire spiritual body shot straight towards the sky dome. Bad Elena, the Highness seems genuinely angry. The priest in the long robe patted the somewhat dazed female with the glasses. She muttered to herself, That shouldn't be right, borrowing something of the Highness, with the remnants of her strength in his body. The data analyzed had at least a 92.32% possibility. Stop talking about that, Priest Ella interrupted, extending her hand as the long spear, which had been pinning the corpse of another priest's abnormality, returned to her grasp. Since the Highness's spiritual body has appeared in this present world, she will soon return. Divine beings do not dwell in the earthly realm. This is the rule. Once they leave the sealed state, the divine beings' spiritual bodies naturally return post-haste to the land above, to reunify with their true form. We too must make haste, and communicate with the Highness about the details of her last spiritual body. Meanwhile, above in the sky dome, Brother Long, see, after all this chatting, we're now friends. The capital theory I just explained to you, don't spread it around, just keep it to yourself. Okay? All right, when you earn a huge pile of gold coins, agree to give me 30%? That's very generous of you. The dragon burst out with its dragon breath, uttering a sound of joy. It had not expected this human could actually communicate with it, knew its preferences, and even taught it a complete set of theoretical knowledge that had it thrilled to the core. It could not wait to expand and strengthen its treasury upon its return. Its wings flapped vigorously, even taking the initiative to shield Su Qi from the fierce winds. Su Qi inwardly sighed, wishing everyone were as simple as this dragon. The next moment, a figure appeared on the dragon's back. The dragon suddenly showed a look of terror, trembling all over, and stayed in place, only flapping its wings without moving. Su Qi's expression also paused slightly. He silently turned his head and looked at the Master of Destruction not far away, her demeanor calm. Continue to fly upwards at the fastest speed. The dragon immediately started flapping its wings, heading toward the sky dome, and at an extremely fast speed. Slow down, Brother Long. Su Qi's eyelids twitched as he saw shockwaves generating constantly around him. He couldn't stand still and started falling down towards the dragon's underside. At that moment, the Master of Destruction extended a finger. Stop! Su Qi's body stabilized. A radius of 1 meter around him was protected by spiritual energy. But the fierce wind continued to thrash his clothes as he yelled, instead of stop, couldn't you just make it slow down? Seems like you really don't want to be thrown off? The Master of Destruction spoke softly to herself with an even gaze. That's simple. Staying put will cost 1 gemstone per second. Slowing down will cost 10 gemstones. And for a safe landing, that'll be 10 times what I owe you. If you can't afford it, I can keep a tab for you, of course, with the same interest as you gave me. Su Qi, that's a bit unreasonable. Learned from you. Bad news. This gal had finally caught on the real trump card was to play the rogue, and moreover, she knew how to use her overwhelming strength to do so, and I had no way to counter it. I missed the principled traveling merchant. Day 1. Su Qi saw there were still 30 seconds left on his dragonback timer, and the transfer time was almost up. At this rate, wouldn't he owe a fortune? And probably couldn't weasel out of it, after all, might is right. The tab that gets noted could well be righteously cleared with this burst. Even with climbing up the pole, he would own a mountain of debt. That won't do. Respected master of destruction, about the gemstones. They can all be synthetically made in my possession. They don't represent any value. Su Chi's voice yelled out amidst the wind. I have something whose value surpasses it. The master of destruction narrowed her eyes slightly but did not accept. Tell me about it, but I'll be the judge of its value. This is bad. Really bad. She learned the essence and completely controlled the rhythm. Su Chi reached for the pendant around his neck, lamenting deeply. This is something I've worn for a long time, a pendant that has been passed down from my grandfather's generation. It is a treasure to me, more valuable than that cold gemstone. No, it is priceless to me. It is also thanks to it that I was able to break through the ancient mists. Soothing flower pendant. A temporary prop given by the system, it possessed extraordinary power, especially its inspection ability, which had already exceeded the norm. It seems now I can only hand it over to you. Maybe that will satisfy you. System? Is this even yours to give away? Su Chi just opened the pendant in his palm. The fierce wind directly blew it over to her. The master of destruction caught it in her hand. Looking at the soothing flower pendant, she indeed felt an abnormal aura from it, different from ordinary items, containing a kind of power with exceptional traits. And Su Chi looked at the top of her head. Desires it but wants to settle the debt, and at the same time make you owe a debt. How pure and innocent the spiritual body was in its youth. Why did it have to learn such bad practices when it grew up? Su Chi glanced at the time, and his eyes paused for a moment. Done. It seems you're quite satisfied. I am not. She scoffed. This thing only compensates for what's already transpired, but for every second that follows. She hadn't finished speaking. Su Chi waved his hand, smiling. Let's cut this short then, until next time. The very next moment. He leaped off the dragon's back. The violent wind caused him to spin as he rapidly fell behind, plunging downwards in a frenzy. The master of destruction's eyes widened. Was that tens of thousands of meters? He, a mere mortal, just jumped. However, the next moment, she furrowed her brow deeply, because Su Chi's presence vanished, or more accurately, a transmission force had whisked him away. And the same force was now coming for the pendant in her hand. Scram! The master of destruction shouted coldly. Power burst forth from within her body. She harshly severed that force. System. Request higher paradise power intervention. Request denied. Please return. The master of destruction, feeling the fading power around her, knit her brows. This force comes from power. And it seems familiar. She, who had not set foot in the present world for a millennium, missed out on much information, and this spiritual essence would soon return under the influence of the rules. For though the spiritual energy was lacking, her transcendent sequence, the divine rank, still stood firm. That guy, not a single word of truth. Nonetheless, it was not a big problem. The master of destruction withdrew the power between her fingers. That guy couldn't run away. Just now she had pinned him, and at the same time she left something on him as well. The moment she would meet the third completely spiritual body in the future, she wondered how splendid his expression would be. She let out a series of chilling cold laughs. The three priests also slowly appeared in the distance, shivering at the sight of the coldly laughing master of destruction. What happened to your highness? I don't know, but her laughter scares me. The mortal who angered your highness seems to have vanished as well. Within their hearts they speculated. How miserable! Not even a trace of his essence left. It's all gone up in smoke. Chapter 152. The Undercurrents of the Ranking Battle. Player Su Bushin has cleared team instance number 3218915. Game difficulty: Nightmare. Game score: 100. Settlement in progress. Awarded perfect level dungeon clearing experience points along with 22,394 game coins and 1333 spiritual ability points. As the MVP of this game, you have additionally earned a 30% bonus in experience, game coins, and spiritual ability points. Successfully completed 3 optional tasks. The third task's progress has exceeded the limit, earning a lottery chance at a higher level than the current sequence. Lottery linked with player sequence. Instance summary. Congratulations, player, on successfully taking the first step out of the sequence, unlocking sealed powers. However, like the fluttering of a butterfly's wings, your series of choices may also determine your future direction. Su Qi's gaze flickered slightly as he was curious about the system in Paradise. The system seemed to have multiple levels of intelligence. The authority of power, among other things, varied. Whenever there was a summary, it seemed to pose enigmatic questions. At this moment, Su Qi looked at his friends list, which was constantly updating. Sword White Clothes requests to add you as a friend. Chung Feng requests to add you as a friend. Sun Xiaohuan requests to add you as a friend. Brother Oat plus 23213 asterisk 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 asterisk. Question mark. Brother Oat again. But clearly, it wasn't the same Brother Oat he encountered in the previous team instance. Since the launch of the leaderboard, numerous Brother Oats had been continuously adding from the list, and though there was a restriction feature, Su Qi hadn't activated it yet. Have I, ranking over 10,000, also been targeted? After adding the 3 people, Chung Feng simply greeted him and then logged off, whereas Sun Xiaohuan was already offline but had left a message. Please be careful of the people from Free City in the ranking battle. This guy. Beta tester. They are different too. Some couldn't successfully enter Paradise, and some were kicked out of it, with Sun Xiaohuan belonging to the latter. He initially approached me and revealed information about Paradise. The message now piqued Su Qi's curiosity once again. This guy wasn't just simply kicked out. Brother Su Buxian. Just then, Sword White Clothes came over to greet him and straightforwardly extended an invitation. Interested in joining Swordflower? He was different from Left Hand, not just because of resurrection tools or other things, but because he clearly sensed the uniqueness in Su Qi. Sword White Clothes had a keen sense of identifying strong players and believed Su Qi had a promising future. I might consider, but first I need you to answer a question. Su Qi asked. Someone told me to be wary of the people from Free City. What is happening there? After a few seconds of contemplation, Sword White Clothes sent a voice message. Free City, huh? There have been some signs recently. Paradise is never just a simple place of harmony. Every area has its own rules. You never know how many forces are involved behind the scenes. Free City, in particular, is a place of chaos. You should be aware of the cultists. There are countless people in Free City leaning toward the Abyss Camp. They have become very dangerous. Su Qi fell into thought. I see. Information naturally flows out whenever occurrences happen in the game. Cultists, the Abyss, including Paradise, etc., were hardly secrets to many players. Yet the internal situation in Paradise seemed more complicated than imagined. The Abyss Camp also represents the faction led by the Abyss Evil God, comprising not just cultists, but also a vast array of other malevolent abnormal organizations and powerful entities, forming part of the Abyss Camp. Also, among the top 100 in the ranking battle, at least 30 are from Free City, possibly including evil cultists from the Abyss Camp. Such a mixed composition? Yep. Sword White Clothes was honest. These are internal details, usually not disclosed. Anyways, Brother Su, you'd better watch out. Those leading the leaderboard have almost all successfully changed classes. Although the information is not complete, one can foresee. The ranking battle will certainly be a fierce struggle. No wonder top clubs like yours invite me, coming together to discuss collaboration. Are you sure we invited you? Isn't it you who forcefully sat down with us? Sword White Clothes previously thought Buxian's club, the Hustlers, was just something Su Buxian bluffed about. But having seen Su Qi's personality and way of doing things, He believed that the other party might truly have such an intention. However, an organization newly founded by solo players with no resources, background, or strength would inevitably only have one path: death. Sword White Clothes was about to extend an olive branch again. Su Chi's voice came through from the other end. Anyway, thanks for the information. I look forward to our two top clubs deepening our cooperation. We'll talk next time. Sword White Clothes silently listened as Su Chi ended the call. He had underestimated his opponent's limits. Thinking about whether to join or not was clearly just a ruse to extract information, but never mind since he was indeed helped in the dungeon. Wait, it seemed that except for the final killing of the supervisor, there wasn't much help, and deviating from the main storyline and falling into crisis along the way all seemed to be because of him. Sword White Clothes felt a suffocation in his chest. Had he also been manipulated? Boss, you don't look too well. The superstar rookie of Sword Flower Club looked at Sword White Clothes curiously. It's nothing? Sword White Clothes rubbed his nose bridge, let out a helpless sigh, and shook his head. Just came out of the dungeon, feeling a bit tired. Ah, that doesn't sound like something you would say, boss. Maybe take a rest. No need. Let's not talk about this. Bring me the information on those people first. They got the information for him. This is the information we found from above. Should be pretty accurate. Sword White Clothes' gaze turned solemn as he stated decisively, they're all troublesome and dangerous characters. Anyway, next up is the ranking battle. We need to be fully alert to face these dangerous enemies. When he mentioned the word enemies, Sword White Clothes spoke firmly without hesitation, and many of the other supreme rookies of Sword Flower Club calmly nodded, seemingly in full agreement. Start drawing. Su Chi was still in his personal space, not yet having left. He was in the midst of a draw, and this time the prize pool had changed, relating to the sequence. Moreover, the level of the prize pool had also upgraded following his performances in the dungeon. The lottery box shook increasingly intensely, and after a series of rapid thuds, its lid popped open, and inside lay a sparkling table tennis paddle. Name: glowing table tennis paddle. Type: spiritual ability equipment. Quality: perfect. Function: swing the red side of the paddle to reflect any attack back. Swing the black side to generate a ping-pong ball with reflective attack properties. The power depends on the consumed spiritual energy points. Note: as a qualified table tennis paddle, it is not allowed in official competitions because the light it emits is too dazzling. Sui. He wasn't sure what to make of it. The item was definitely good, offering both defense and attack, already considered powerful equipment. But why so peculiar? Others fight with swords, sabers, spears, and I whip out a ping-pong paddle to chop, spin, pull, and smash? Never mind. I'll just keep it for now, and maybe find someone to play a game of table tennis next time. After Su Chi finished the draw, he then looked at his skill bar. Having stayed on the dragon's back for so long, he had gained a new skill. Name: Dragon Knight. Type: skill. Function: you will summon a fire dragon to fight alongside you. Duration: 10 minutes. Consumption: 5,000 physical strength. Note: go. Fire dragon. Use the water spray attack. Su Chi silently observed his two summoning skills. One summons mosquitoes, the other summons a fire dragon. No problem. Both are aerial. Both are my wings. Having done all this, Su Chi replied to some messages. Yisho was still in the dungeon. This guy had been working hard recently, frantically improving himself. Qing Lang and Left Hand, among others, were leaving him messages about other clubs. After logging out, Su Chi casually had a meal. The time rules had changed, so he didn't necessarily have to go from one instance to the next in one day. More liver play would only make the real-time flow faster, resulting in offline warnings, effectively deterring many 24-hour hardcore players. He then took his usual bath and went to sleep to train two black shadows, and named them Gon, Wan, Chui. Oh, Chui wasn't there yet, that would wait until Su Chi caught another later. And as real-world time slowly passed, many people had already entered Dreamland, of course, Many others were still fiercely challenging dungeons at night. When the time froze at 4 in the morning, at this moment, a notification suddenly popped up silently from countless people's phones, from the official website, from computers, written in a few sparse black letters. The 12 Worlds tournament will officially begin. A few brief numbers, declaring that the undercurrent-ridden ranking battle had formally begun. Chapter 153. Ranking battle begins. Lounge area of Hall 24. Over here. Left hand beckoned to Su Qi. Su Qi walked over, glanced at the surrounding people, leaders of the top clubs from before, none of whom had brought companions or were in a public area. That was normal. Previously, everyone had gathered and made a high-profile effort to cooperate, deliberately for certain hostile clubs to see. But now that the ranking battle had officially started, they no longer needed that gimmick, but instead had to go all out to prepare for everything. Brother Su, we meet again. Sword White Clothes took the initiative, greeting him warmly. Su Qi nodded, looking at the others. Speaking of which, you guys aren't planning another contentious meeting like last time, are you? That won't be the case. Left hand reached out and pulled out a stack of materials. Right now it's mainly about exchanging information. This is what I've got regarding the so-called 12 Worlds competition. You might want to take a look. Each person received a copy of the information, which Su Qi observed was collected from multiple channels. Currently, the competition format is unclear, but it's very likely to be points-based or elimination-based. As it involves all level 20 players across the server, it's a huge number. As for the so-called 12 Worlds, they are probably divided into 12 regions. Left hand softly added, for specifics, we'll have to wait until 2 o'clock this afternoon. That was when the ranking battle would begin. Left hand was the first to share information, displaying sincerity. A few others from the other clubs then also spoke up. I also have some intelligence to share, learned from above in the paradise. The worlds we enter in the competition are highly likely to be linked to various factions. Question mark. Someone frowned. Does that mean we might enter worlds under some kind of sanctuary? Many powerful beings commanded respect and strength that could dominate a world, unfazed by corruption. Yes, that means we could really be making contact with real factions, maybe even entering worlds under the sanctuary of the 7 Spirit Kings. That's too far for us. Each Spirit King is a terrifyingly powerful existence. At most, we might come into contact with their lower-tier organizations. Someone shook their head. But it's also a good opportunity to increase our prestige, while being cautious, of course, since hostility and abnormalities are more common. They were aware of their limitations. Once they entered these worlds, they would do best not to stir trouble and remain humble, because once inside the paradise, these factions appeared more frequently, and with many worlds interconnected, nobody wanted to enter an instance only to find their own wanted posters plastered everywhere. Of course, this was also a way to increase their prestige. Wait! Left hand suddenly paused, looking at Su Buxian, a bit startled. I almost forgot. We've discussed so much but haven't explained. Brother Su, you might not be aware of these things, right? About the factions, Spirit Kings, the Abyss, etc. After all, you don't know much about the paradise. Su Qi had heard of the Spirit Kings before. Russell had once offered Sky Gold to one, presumably called the Sunset Spirit King. It seemed the mixed fish piano was also offered up. No big deal. Su Qi paused. After all, I never prepare when gaming. I just skip over all the different plots and worldviews, and sometimes the unknown might be the most interesting, right? This was a serious ranking battle, the Abyssal Paradise. It wasn't some run-of-the-mill game you were playing. The big shots in the paradise were all pouring vast resources into it. Attitudes from the top powers were very serious and urgent, but it all seemed just interesting to you. Sword White Clothes silently regarded Su Qi. Having observed him during a previous instance and spent some time together, he believed Su Qi was serious. Right? Finally, Sword White Clothes also produced intelligence about the competition's formidable contestants. Among the 12 regions, if anyone encounters these individuals, please be extra careful. They were extremely well prepared for this ranking battle, having gotten hold of the opponent's skills, equipment, and other information from various clues. Everyone nodded gravely, as the competition was crucial, the situation complex, and the enemies dangerous, so there wasn't much beating around the bush. The intelligence sharing was more or less complete. Wait, have all of you finished talking? Everyone was taken aback, looking at Su Chi. Su Chi spoke softly. Then let me also share a piece of information. Many knew that Su Chi was neither a super new talent of any club, nor had any relation with the Paradise. So where was his information from? From the data I currently hold. Su Chi. This hall has an exceptionally large number of people. What kind of information is this? And what does it have to do with your so-called data? And at least more than 7 sets of eyes have been constantly on us here, though, of course, they shift their gaze as soon as you look at them. Sword White Clothes paused, his eyebrows knitting slightly. Are you saying we are being watched? Left Hand shook his head. That's not necessary. This kind of surveillance serves no purpose. Su Chi spoke calmly. They are monitoring the time you leave. Just by estimating when you will enter the competition, they inform people above, and have potentially bribed hundreds or thousands of players to match with you, and then either act in their script or secretly sabotage you. Everyone's expression darkened. Such underhanded tactics? Left Hand, however, was surprised. Su Buxian, how do you know all this so clearly? Su Chi muttered to himself. I have to mention that a month ago, while playing the game, someone actually accused me of cheating. They created over 50 accounts just to target me, acting and feeding kills. That's too much. What happened next? Then, both of our accounts got banned. You really were cheating. Su Chi remained calm and composed. That's rude. Can this ? Ability appearing in an ordinary online game really be called cheating? It's called triggering an Easter egg. Can you blame him? Fortunately, Abyssal Paradise is genuinely fair and open, unlike other games that might wrongly ban him. Sword White Clothes coughed and said, Anyway, everyone should be aware of this and try to stagger the times. Gradually, everyone's expressions grew solemn and serious. Then they began to disperse. They still had to continue communicating with the upper echelons, securing their prepared trump cards. This time, the undercurrents in the dark were about to turn into raging waves in the open. Inside the Paradise, many upper echelons were watching everything intently with deep gazes. It's starting. Just like those few internal tests. Although the rules have been constantly changing over the years, and this time is not as brutal as before, but this session is the most extensive, the most intense, with the most resources poured in, and a large number of super rookies making a grand slaughter. Someone cackled. I wonder who will be able to enter that place that countless people covet and rush towards. Time passed by the minute and second, and all players had entered the game early, quietly waiting in their personal space, with the number of people increasing. The online count probably reached its peak today. Fortunately, Abyssal Paradise had no server crashes, otherwise with so many people, other games would have crashed by now. Su Chi also returned to his personal space. He checked the friend list. Night Guard was still in the instance. Lately, this guy was unreachable in real life and there were no messages from him in the game, and even though the competition was about to start, he was still in the instance. That's not right, maybe. His access was masked by some authority in the Paradise. Su Chi remembered Night Guard's background. He had been indeed mysterious lately, with his last message saying, Brother Su, I'm going to do something big, wait for my return. He wouldn't be going for a sexchange operation, would he? Then, at that moment, it struck 2 o'clock. The clock's chime resonated in every player's personal space, and the sound was coming from outside the room. Ding! Su Chi looked outside the room. In the black fog, it was as though an ancient bell echoed back, eerie and ancient, vibrating everyone's minds. Almost at the same time, Su Chi and countless other players also saw a flickering message box appear in front of them. Dear players, the The 12 Worlds competition has officially begun. All players above level 20 are eligible to participate, and the competition will be divided into 12 different regions, where players will likely encounter a series of universes, worlds, backgrounds, and forces. During the competition period, all other matchmaking channels will be closed. The rewards for this competition are potential reward/sequence reward/destiny reward/ultimate, and specific methods to boost rankings will be explained after players enter the instance. Su Chi paused slightly. There was one last sentence, written in a different colored ink, twisted and squiggly, like a bug crawling or some kind of curse. Although it was just seen with the eyes, it felt like it was whispering in the ear, chuckling, and as if giving a warning. New players, you seem a bit too foolish and weak. Starting with an insult? And why does this tone sound like the one who sent me the paradise invitation? Like a sailor who has not yet sailed out, has not yet stepped on the path to the future, being complacent, having not witnessed the true grandeur of waves, thinking you understand the face of the world. It's really laughable. It was indeed laughing, like a throat glued together chuckling, like a cold mockery, growing louder and more eerie, making all players' scalps tingle, a chill entering from the back and spreading through the body. It feels like being heart-wrenchingly, desperately unique. Su Chi commented on the laughter. The laughter gradually ceased, but it still echoed in all players' ears like tinnitus, followed by its raspy voice continuing to resonate oddly. And now, before this grand ship of the paradise sets sail, no matter how madly you fight, how fiercely you slaughter, how hard you try, don't forget, this is just a beginning, a chance to witness the true meaning of life, the opportunity to acquire the pen to carve out oneself, the destiny. The undetermined gears are still quietly turning. Lastly, the script turned blood red, like flowing blood, slowly revealing a sentence everyone had seen before, but now seeing it made their hair stand on end. Welcome, players, to Abyssal Paradise. Chapter 154. The world desperately trying to make money. Su Chi looked at his gray and dim personal space. All the matching options had been locked with chains. Only a dark, bloody handprint was displayed before him, waiting for the players to press it. Su Chi pondered, not yet having entered paradise. Certain things were hard to say and judge, but he felt that what Su Linqiu narrated might not be the whole story. There seemed to be many unknowns involved. He reached out and pressed it. Player Su Buxian is about to enter the 12 Worlds competition. You will be randomly assigned to a competition area. The assigned area is Fantasy Universe. The matching mechanism will match algorithms according to your current ranking. Please note that the competition will employ a points system. All player performances in the instance will affect their points. The next moment, blood began to seep through the gaps of the room and the windows, engulfing Su Chi in an instant. Su Chi woke up on a bus. Not an ordinary bus, but one of those incredible ones that flew in the sky, and the passengers around him were far from ordinary. People wearing prosthetic eyes and limbs, a green-headed monster in a suit and tie, with a burly figure, Xiao Huang wearing a construction hat. It caught me off guard. Su Chi's gaze shifted from the bus interior and then outwards to the massive neon-lit skyscrapers, the air tram tracks stretching across the sky. Everything was so cyberpunk. Moreover, on many skyscrapers were enormous screens, holographically rolling out advertisements. New prosthetic assembly packages now available. Hot sale, the glimmer and glamour of Stars Hall. Tickets pre-sale 5,000,000 cybercoins. If you encounter any violations in the city, please alert the authorities immediately. Handling personnel will come upon call to solve your problems. Meanwhile, in the largest grand square, a holographic image was flashing in a rock style. A city of bliss where the bizarre and technology coexist. In 10 days, a superstar who commands the attention of tens of thousands will be hosting the annual auction of death, madness, and joy. Location: Stars Hall in Night City. Stay tuned. Su Chi withdrew his gaze, muttering to himself, So this is Cyberpunk City? But it seems somewhat different. Because this city was not only inhabited by humans. There were various abnormal, eerie, and bizarre races. But everyone was busy, much like office workers. He himself was wearing a badly fitted suit with wrinkles. By then, a super-thin strap on his wrist popped out a holographic image. Dear Citizen Su Buxian, a reminder that your current balance is only 100 cybercoins. In 10 days, the costs you will have to pay include citizen status fee, rent, water, electricity, clothing leasing, internet fees, totaling up to 8,213.23 cybercoins. To avoid violating the rules, please deposit the full amount in time. If the fees are insufficient, your citizenship will be revoked, and you will be expelled. He quietly processed the information, realizing he was indeed broke. Even the suit he wore was rented. And now, what was he supposed to be doing? The bus slowly stopped at a cloud platform. Meanwhile, his wristwatch also reminded Su Chi, "You have arrived at your destination. 20 cybercoins deducted. Balance now 80. Su Chi raised an eyebrow. What kind of expensive crap is this? He grabbed his briefcase and disembarked from the bus. I understand now. This is a world where prices skyrocket and capital inflates. And Su Chi glanced at the interview materials and advertising signs prepared in his briefcase. Seems like I'm going to a company interview to preserve my identity? Please note, current instance player count, 1,000. Each player will start with 10 points. Note, if your points drop to 0, you will be eliminated from the competition and can't participate in the conquest. Current world's key term for increasing points, consumption. Su Chi quietly noted the system prompt. This city apparently had thousands of players and, based on appearances, should be divided into different areas. Regarding the keyword, consumption, Su Chi mused. The bus fee seemed to only add 0.1 points. Too low. What can my remaining 80 cyber coins buy? A lollipop. Soon, Su Chi found himself mistaken. Because a freaking lollipop cost 199 cyber coins. He couldn't afford to buy one. Pathetic. Freaking pathetic. Not just broke, but also having a pile of fees to pay. Su Chi decided to first check out the company where he was about to interview. Thousands of players were competing in this city, and since the way to earn points was to spend, they would inevitably work frantically to earn money. Moreover, the higher the luxury, the more points earned. Of course, the first thing to do, Su Chi had to successfully secure this job. He quickly reached the company he was interviewing for, Mysterious Processing Containment Company. The area was crowded with prospective employees. So many people? In the fast-paced cyber city, money is everything. No beating about the bush. Money was the real boss, and without contracts, wages are settled daily. Failure to meet the requirements or death meant another person would replace them. Everyone seemed desperate to get into this company. Su Chi quickly entered the hallway outside the interview venue. He noticed the presence of other players, his arrival catching their attention. In a city with thousands of players, if most of their starting conditions were similar, the chances of encountering each other would greatly increase. Chapter 155. That is to say, there are other players at this very moment also interviewing at other companies. Everyone is desperately trying to make money to boost their points. A middle-aged man actually smiled and greeted Su Chi. Looks like you're the last player among all the interviewees. Anything to say? Time. The young man pointed to the holographic time on the wall. Half a minute after you entered this area. No one was allowed to enter anymore. So, apart from those other interviewees, only the 5 of us are the players recruited by this company. Apart from the middle-aged man and the young man, there was also a female player and Fatty. Next. At that moment, a cold voice came from inside the interview room. Someone was thrown out, burned all over, with skin split and flesh open. This really isn't a normal interview, is it? Fatty's eyelids were twitching. That's the 7th one now, said a young man with glasses, shaking his head slightly. Being known as the Abnormality Containment Company, of course it's not that simple. I predict that making money in this city, even with a regular job, carries a high risk. The young man pondered and analyzed clearly. However, fortunately, based on my understanding, every company has a promotion system, and they don't look at seniority, only ability, which is also a way for players to earn money and pull ahead. After all, the way to gain points is through spending. Only when you make enough money and have status can you afford high expenses. Su Chi looked at his ID, Rainier Vale. It seemed he was a player skilled in gathering information and analyzing. So, I suggest that the 5 of us should team up, make use of our respective advantages, and strive to advance in position to earn cyber coins, suggested the young man, and the other 3 agreed. What do you think? Player Su Buxian. Rainier Vale looked at Su Chi. In his view, the arrangement by each company was akin to dividing players into teams, and since that was the case, then the 5 of them had to work together. I think, Su Chi mused, instead of working ourselves to death and spending our earnings on our bosses' cars and houses, we might as well go for something bigger. I have a way that makes more money. The others looked surprised. What is it? He paused. On the way here, there was a bank. Oh. Rainier Vale coughed. Don't joke. Robbing a bank in this city is a grave crime. According to the information I saw on the way here, it's simply not possible. Su Chi with interest. Why? The reason he was last to arrive was that he had stood outside the bank for a long time. He truly intended to go through with it. Any criminal action will be swiftly dealt with by the enforcement squads. They are very powerful, nearly insurmountable in terms of armament and strength for players. Rainier Vale shook his head. Plus, once you commit a crime, your citizenship will be revoked, and you'll be placed under a citywide warrant. Then you'll be in an endless state of being hunted down, especially in the cyber world where electronic eyes and tracking technology are everywhere. Unable to make money, also unable to boost points, so almost no players choose this path. Rainier Vale believed that after telling him all this, the young man in front would no longer consider such a dangerous route. So, better to focus on the upcoming interview instead. It should be an opportunity given by the system. If you don't pass, you can expect to be in a quite difficult situation. Su Chi gave an okay gesture. Don't worry, I'm not reckless. He wouldn't act recklessly now, after all. He was without information or much certainty. Best to see what the company had to offer next before deciding how to rob the bank. Rainier Vale was unaware of the dangerous thoughts in Su Chi's mind. He was still analyzing what kind of interview it could be. And soon enough, not many remained in the interview room. Several people had been eliminated. Some were unhurt but pallid, exuding an air of desperation. They seemed to be people at their wits' end. Without this job, they'd have no income. Soon to be expelled, a situation almost akin to being dead. Looks like it's just you 5 left. A holographic head with a flashing red light appeared at the entrance of the hallway room, as if sizing them up. Come in together. Rainier Vale silently signaled everyone to be careful and then took the lead in walking over. After entering the room, the lighting was somewhat dim. Behind a long table, there sat a person with an invisible face, wearing a mask with a body that was modified. And there were no chairs in front. Rainier Vale stood first in line. From the very start, he had been gathering information, and he also believed he should be the strongest in terms of experience and ability among the 5 players. Then he simply had to be this leader. No matter what happened in the interview, he was psychologically prepared. Where do you come from? The interviewer did not even ask for a name. Slums. Rainier Vale began, but the interviewer calmly cut him off. Slums? I'm not asking you where you live, but the world you're originally from. Rainier Vale's expression stiffened. The original world. Damn, he almost forgot. Seeing the massive diversity of racial residents within the city, it was clear that this was a melting pot of a city, inhabited by people from many different worlds. Paradise. He glanced at the lie detector and spat out these 2 words, and the others followed suit. Paradise. 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 Eastern Earth Great Tang. All 4 couldn't help but turn to look at Su Chi, their eyes wide. Su Chi spread his hands. I'm not lying. The interviewer noticed that the lie detection device did not give a warning, and he actually recorded it. Then, without asking any other questions, not even their names, he said calmly, "Let's get right to the main topic then." The partition in the middle of the table gently opened, and 5 empty boxes were pushed forward. Our job post is quite simple. It's about deliveries, containment. You need to pack the items that customers need into these boxes. For example, he snapped his fingers. 5 glass jars appeared on the table, each with a creature resembling an octopus but covered in spikes. The only thing you need to do now is to put it in the box without damaging anything, and then pack it up. Of course, by anything, I don't mean yourselves. Rainier Vale took a deep breath and nodded. Understood. Su Chi looked over. That octopus abnormality, with spines all over its body, had considerable strength, was venomous and had strong aggressiveness, but was extremely low in intelligence and had weak spiritual power. His pupils flickered slightly. Rainier Vale was also quietly conveying a message. Don't provoke it, don't touch the spikes, and be as gentle as possible. It's best to not make any sound at all. The others were cautiously operating by the various detailed indications stuck on the glass jars. And then, hand it over. The glass jar in front of Su Chi had already been opened directly, and the octopus was reaching out a tentacle, shaking hands with Su Chi like a little dog. Rainier Vale's eyes widened. How did you manage that? Su Chi snapped his fingers. Trick of the trade. Don't forget it's all in the technique. He discovered that his spiritual eyes contained the origin strength of the evil god Abyss, and although it hadn't shown directly, it had a high priority of influence on all sorts of abnormalities, since abnormalities are the result of pollution, and the power of pollution comes from the Abyss, with the evil god being the ringleader of pollution. But there were limits to the influence. Stand up, Su Chi commanded, and the octopus abnormality propped itself up with its tentacles. Front flip. The octopus gritted its teeth and performed a flip in midair. Back flip. It did so again. Do a 720-degree spiral flip. The octopus came to a standstill, clueless on how to proceed after a long while, caught in a dilemma right there. But at that moment, due to excessive stimulation, it seemed to shake off the influence. Then, anger erupting from within, it actually let out a roar and charged at Su Chi with its tentacles. The next moment, smack. All right, in you go. Su Chi slapped it into the box and deftly closed it. Rainier Vale and the others watched this scene in shock, and the interviewer fell silent. What in the actual hell kind of move was that? Chapter 156. Brother, I'm about to have a breakdown. Under the careful operation of everyone, the other octopus abnormalities were also confined in jars. Although their approaches differed from Su Chi's, they still managed to complete the task. Not bad. The interviewer tapped the table lightly. Indeed, you are somewhat more capable than those people. You can join the company, but I must remind you, these few items are just the lowest level of containment in the company. There are many more dangerous items that are not so simple. Moreover, the hourly wage is 100 cyber coins. If you can contain more advanced pollutants, you can increase your wage. Several people's eyes lit up slightly. Su Chi glanced at them. Look at your pitiful selves. You're excited about this? Outside, a lollipop costs 199 cyber coins. What are you glowing for? Moreover, the mentioned promotion is just an empty promise, while also encountering more dangerous containment items. Under arrangements, everyone began to enter the company, preparing to officially start their work life. Rainier Vale whispered, "Remember, our most important priority is not only to make money but also to raise our status. Currently, nearly 1,000 other players are also taking actions like us, initially competing over who can earn money faster, but more so to gain the opportunity to make even more money after a position upgrade. Then they're spending on certain items. I'm not sure yet which items, categories, increase points the most." He fell into thought. I'm still unclear about this. But Su Chi spoke softly. Luxury goods. Everyone paused. In this city, some people don't take money seriously, squandering it wildly, living a lavish and decadent life, indulging in luxury goods that are worth far more than their value. While at the same time, there are people who can't afford rent or utilities, have no savings, can't eat enough, lack warm clothing, and face unemployment and the risk of being deprived of their identity. Busy, yet accomplishing nothing. Su Chi muttered to himself, "This is indeed an extreme characteristic of cyberpunk." This was the situation for every player at the start, not to mention most of the inhabitants of this city. "I don't want to say this, but it's kind of heartbreaking," a female player with a ponytail sighed. An older man responded quietly, "It reminds me of..." "Bro, stop talking, please. I admit, I'm about to break down." Fatty's tears were about to fall. "Can we just play the game and forget everything else?" Rainier Vale looked at the group, emotional just from a few words from Su Chi, and fell silent. Looking toward their destination, he had to add, "We've arrived. It seems like we have to start working to earn money." Su Chi and the disheartened crowd entered the so-called warehouse under guidance, a huge space where employees of the same position, each distinct, clearly came from different worlds, as the interviewer had said. Everyone was also assigned areas, equipped with transport channels and a holographic screen, seemingly for communicating with customers from all walks of life. "Let's work, workers of the soul. One day we will rise above the others." Fatty clenched his fists and encouraged, "I'm going too. Good luck, everyone. If there's any issue, come seek help immediately. We're all in the same boat now." "Okay." Rainier Vale watched as the group's spirit somewhat recovered and he exhaled. At least everyone was making an effort. In this city with thousands of competing players, nothing was certain. Nobody knew what would happen next. "Su Buxian, I'm going to work now too." "Okay, off you go." Su Chi watched Rainier Vale walk away. He himself was not in a hurry to return to his workstation, even though the display showed that leaving for just 5 minutes would start deducting wages. 500 cyber coins each time. But he was not anxious. Su Chi took a walk around, observing the items being transported at various workstations, having some realizations. "I think I understand now. It must be that the stuff Russell bought initially, the transfer station, was here. An earlier team instance, a spaceship loaded with various abnormalities and pollutants, flying toward Tianchi Star. And the items on that ship were all tributes for the Sunset Spirit King. It seems he finally found the source. Well, let's get to work." Su Chi returned to his workstation. He still owed debts, planning to earn some startup funds first before assessing the situation. However, even in such a large company, the work hours were not something ordinary people could handle, working 5 hours in the morning, resting and eating at noon, working 9 hours in the afternoon, and also working overtime. Aiming for 14 hours of work a day. Su Chi noticed another thing. No matter the position, no matter how poor, everyone dressed perfectly decently, wearing suits, ties, formal shoes, collared shirts, and work pants. Homeless people dressed in ragged clothes seemed impossible in this city. Every person looked neat and clean, presenting a kind of stateliness. Is this because of the industry and city's subliminal rules? Su Chi roughly made a judgment. In this city, appearance represents the image and can even influence job interviews, and also has to match the cyberpunk vibe. This was why, even if they didn't have money, everyone would still rent a decent outfit, and not just for the interview. Even after the interview was over, they wouldn't return it but would continue wearing it in every aspect of daily life. It seemed like they were proving to others that they had jobs and were doing well. Su Chi also started working. Chapter 157. The work process was simple. The input port would send over an abnormality or pollutant, marked with a label that indicated its traits, and they would process and package it. Next, they contacted the customer, affixed the address, and shipped it out. It's similar to an assembly line, only there are more complicated processes and life-threatening risks, and there's no personal insurance fund. At that moment, at a workstation to the side and behind Su Chi, there was a man with a scruffy beard. His body was equipped with cheap prosthetic gear, flickering with electricity and unstable light. Just then, He suddenly screamed as a blood-stained thorny flower violently pierced his eye. Save! Save! Eft! The thorny flower pierced straight through. The man's struggles gradually subsided, and only the electricity that hadn't dissipated yet flowed within the mechanics, causing his body to twitch. Take it away. Clean it up, then recruit the next packager. The handlers quickly received the instructions and came to deal with everything very efficiently. Once they were seriously injured or even killed by a pollutant or an abnormality, there would be no compensation. No contract, just a cold cash transaction. And the rules of this city? Sorry, those were there to protect the superiors, the wealthy, the capitalists. They had nothing to do with ordinary people. Moreover, Su Qi looked at the question mark above the dead uncle's body. Many people weren't installing prosthetics for appearances or to follow trends or seek convenience. They were selling their own human organs and tissue for money, and then barely getting by with the installation of some worthless cheap prosthetics. Pollution instances, and the city before my eyes. Which is stronger, which is weaker? Work continued. All other workstations were carefully processing pollutants and abnormalities, avoiding situations like that of the uncle. Only Su Qi's station operated at an extremely fast pace. Whether it was abnormalities or pollutants under his spiritual eyes, they were all like good babies. As long as you didn't provoke them or let them react, they were no different from a regular assembly line. Therefore, Su Qi quickly completed his daily target and could continue working at more than 10 times the rate. But, all right, starting to get bored. Su Qi disliked monotony. Indeed, he could ascend gradually with this ability and become the king among workers, commonly known as the super worker. But it was no damn use, and he couldn't slack off, as there were obviously a large number of electronic eyes and holographic detection devices watching them. At this time, "That guy is talented," remarked the interviewer, seemingly paying attention to this area. He narrowed his eyes and said softly, "It's time to promote him." Su Qi also received the message quickly, telling him to go to another area. "Congratulations, Citizen Su Buxian. Your company position level has been upgraded from lower class to level D. Your cyber coin earnings per hour raised to 200. Finally, I can buy a couple more lollipops." Rainier Vale and the others were startled and looked at Su Qi. "That fast?" Su Qi replied calmly, "I'll go up and check the situation first. You guys work hard and do a good job. Next year, I'll find you guys a sister-in-law." Tui. Workers at other stations cast envious and jealous glances, then buried their heads and worked even harder. The promotion system was clear-cut, ensuring enthusiasm to a certain extent. But in the outrageous consumerist desires and frenetic conditions of this city, the money would always flow upwards. Meanwhile, as Su Qi stepped into the next area, he also received a reminder. "Attention! You will be handling requests from higher-level customers. You will also face more dangers." Interesting. It seems that continuing to ascend could grant access to higher-level information and even more. However, the company screen provided could only be used for communication with customers, not for playing games, searching, or any other extraneous activities, and each employee's communicator would also be cut off from the network, almost eliminating the chance of leaking or probing for information. But Su Qi had a way which was to chat. Customers who could send and buy things here were considered middle class with a certain amount of capital. After all, the divide was too big. He often gently steered the conversation, extracting the information he wanted from the other party, and could even gain some tips and high praise. Damn, it's like I'm doing companion chat. Half a day passed like this. There was an hour of rest at noon because after all, humans are iron and food is steel. Even if their company was ruthless, they couldn't deny the employees' mealtime. Of course, as expected by Su Qi, the cafeteria wasn't free either. All food cost money. Damn it! Fatty held his tray, eyes wide as he stared at the cafeteria's moving window. A steak costs a damn 1,500 cyber coins. I don't earn enough in a day to afford even one piece. Even a regular meatball soup costs 700. Is this really the high-tech city of the future? Why do I feel so cold inside? Su Chi said calmly, "Don't bother looking. That food isn't prepared for us." He pointed elsewhere. "That's where we should go." At the other side of the cafeteria, a crowd swarmed, buying not food but various nutritional compounds, goo, and satiating edible mixtures. "That's cheaper. You can buy it for 100 cyber coins. And besides maintaining life's basic functions, it seems to have no other benefits." "I can't work here even for a day." Su Chi twisted the knife a little more. "Think about your elderly mother and children at home. Can you not do it? If you don't, there are plenty of others who will." Chapter 158. Ponytail female gamer paused, then said softly, "Wait, I don't have any kids to support right now." The middle-aged man said sadly, "I do. Damn it, I'm about to lose it too." Rainier Vale coughed. "All right, let's not talk about this anymore. We should go buy some compounds first, considering we only have 1 hour to rest." He also quietly pulled Su Chi aside. "Don't stir them up anymore. Even if it's unintentional, it still affects them." Su Chi didn't respond. He just wanted to say, "Who said I was unintentional?" The 5 of them quickly bought the compounds, and Fatty even seriously placed a chunk of compound on a huge plate. "What are you doing?" "Just thinking, what if it tastes good?" Su Chi just wanted to say, "You're thinking too much." Sure enough, after Fatty tasted it, his expression slightly changed. "Why does it have no taste? Although it does give a feeling of fullness. This feeling is so fake." "That's normal. If they made this stuff delicious, who would still crave high-quality food?" Su Chi said lightly. He now understood why a lollipop could sell for more than 100 cyber coins. Food is the epitome of luxury consumption. Everyone sighed. "Ah, isn't this the fantasy universe? How come it feels like all the illusions have been shattered?" Rainier Vale coughed. "Let's talk about promotions instead. Now that we're getting the hang of it, we can speed up a bit and might soon advance to the next level." "Right, Buxian, do you have any experience to share with us? You're already at level D, right?" Su Chi held up 2 fingers. "First, this technique is hard to teach. You guys better be steady. Second, I'm actually at level C now, earning 500 cyber coins per hour." Everyone's eyes widened. "You're freaking outrageous. You must be cheating." Speaking so realistically and sadly, yet doing better and advancing faster than anyone. How is this any different from secretly studying relentlessly in a dorm room? Jerk. Rainier Vale's eyes lit up instead. "At this rate, Buxian, you might be able to climb the corporate ladder to a higher position, then gain advantages and also help us." "Well." Su Chi shook his head. "I'm afraid that's not possible. This position at most could only go up to level C. Level B positions are usually for minor supervisors, level A for top leaders. And these 2 levels require status, connections and backgrounds and payments. Only then one might have a chance." He paused. "In short, all kinds of restrictions. Breaking through them isn't that easy." The 3 sighed quietly. "But it's comforting to think that other players are more or less in the same boat as us. After all, everyone starts at the same starting line. Whether you're a dragon or a tiger, you have to stay low here." Su Chi did not say anything. This point wasn't easy to mention. Every company that stands in the cyber city does so because it plays by the rules. Most are deceitful to the extreme, and there is also a segment of the elite class, the real capitalist families, forces, and organizations residing above all. Some players would choose to sidestep the mainstream and try to contact these elites to see if they could get an opportunity or a higher position. But no rush. This was just the first day. The system hadn't announced anything about competitive content yet. Currently, it was mainly about letting players gather information, accumulate cyber coins, and gain some initial advantages. Soon, everyone returned to their stations. Being late, leaving early, unauthorized departure, and slacking off would all result in a deduction of cyber coins. Everyone was busy, and Su Chi returned to his district. Although he had now reached level C and was making more money, he was still a delivery person, packaging parcels. But none of that was important. What was important was that he also managed to meet some high-class clients. Maybe they weren't truly from the elite class, but they clearly had nothing to do with ordinary people. And the things they bought or sent had obviously changed, although involving many more outrageously dangerous items. There were also antiques, paintings, and even pointless trinkets. Also, the prices were ridiculously high, almost all starting from $1 million. Filthy rich second generations. Now that I think about it, I should give Rainier a couple of punches. Having just come out of somewhere and preparing to enter a championship. Rainier sneezed. And these items are also something employees wouldn't dare to steal. Once discovered, no, discovery was inevitable. There would be only one outcome: being stripped of citizenship and burdened with a massive debt. Then being sold to a human trafficking organization. Let's continue. Su Chi kept on gathering information, learning about the various elite layers within the city, and understanding some organizational powers. But it was difficult to make deep contact. After all, as soon as he showed this proactive tendency, he would be detected and warned. It's really tightly guarded. This made Su Chi hesitant to proceed. He could obtain the other party's preferences and interests through question mark, and then contact them. But with these restrictions, unless the client made an active request, it was generally hard to continue. At this time, however, a client with the ID Florence Grace came online. Question mark. Isn't this ID slightly familiar? Which rich auntie has logged in? Please note, employee 93123. This customer is extremely important. Please watch your language and communication. Do not engage in any probing of their privacy. Sui. He looked at what the other party was buying. It was cosmetics, and the prices were freaking ridiculously high. Indeed, it was Florence Grace. Who knows how many points could be accumulated from this purchase. Would robbing a bank be less profitable than robbing rich women? But, although with restrictions, still encountering such a major client, Su Chi wanted to see if he could find some opportunities. Chapter 159, Illegal Land. Before packaging the customer's items into the exquisite box, Su Chi had contacted the customer. This step was often to ascertain any additional requirements from the customer. If it were ordinary goods, this step wouldn't be necessary. However, high-end customers usually had some troublesome and demanding requirements regarding their goods and packaging, among other details. For instance, this Miss Florence Grace, even before Su Chi could reply, she had already taken the initiative to speak, and her tone was quite polite. Can it be shipped tomorrow? Su Chi responded, sorry, I'm afraid that won't be possible. Then when can it ship? This afternoon. Florence Grace fell silent for a few seconds, seemingly unable to wrap her head around the answer. After a few seconds, she slowly typed out her message. Can it be sent via Star Express? Our estate is a bit troublesome, with quite a few restrictions. Look at that. Estate. Rich ladies sure are rich. Su Chi replied politely, we don't accept couriers outside of the company's partnerships, dear. But she seemed to want to say something but hesitated for a moment. Okay then, what courier do you guys use? Star Express. Oh? The person on the other side of the screen was silent much longer this time. She didn't know why, but she always felt the urge to slap this employee. Nevertheless, she obviously couldn't be bothered with that now, and after hesitating for a few seconds, additionally, I can make a request to you, right? I would like you to place a Super Dream MR412 inside. She paused, tentatively asking, is that possible? Su Chi raised an eyebrow. Something wasn't right. Judging from the account level, the customer was clearly a longtime client, often purchasing various luxury items. However, the person currently using this account seemed like someone not very familiar with online shopping. And Super Dream MR412? Su Chi knew about it. It was a miniature virtual internet connection device, quite valuable. He was about to reply. Just at that moment, Su Chi's eyelid twitched slightly as he was slowly shown, ! Delivering Super Dream MR412 to the customer will reward you with Super Dream Hacker Agreement. Just hand it over? Su Chi replied. The product link has been sent to you. You need to place an order to purchase it. This thing was even cheaper than lipstick, just 10,000 cyber coins. Since the customer wanted it and she was a rich lady, she definitely wouldn't hesitate. But the customer was silent for a few seconds, then replied, "Sorry, let's forget it." Just let it go? Su Chi's gaze flickered, not batting an eye at a million cybercoin lipstick but stepping back from a virtual device that cost less than 1% of that. The issue definitely wasn't the price. Moreover, based on the previous conversations, he had a pretty good idea. There was only one possibility. She was not the account owner, and even the lipstick wasn't something she had purchased. She was just trying to use this channel to secretly acquire the items she needed. Just like a child without a phone, sneakily using their parents' account to buy a Fiji cup. Su Chi understood. However, he didn't want to miss this exclamation point task. He was just about to reply, "If you really need it, I can personally help." At that moment, the electronic monitoring holographic detector next to him suddenly flashed red and emitted a warning. All the text that had been typed was deleted. Is this sensitive? He hadn't even finished speaking, and it was already blocked. Su Chi glanced at the screen. The customer hadn't said anything for 10 seconds, and their previous statements were being retracted. Seems like she was indeed using it sneakily and was probably about to go offline now. Time waits for no one. So be it. He faced the electronic monitoring holographic detector without any hesitation. He activated Artificial Team's counterattack. The next moment, judgment successful. The whole device malfunctioned as if it had short-circuited. Attention to Workstation 213's monitoring system malfunction. Please repair immediately. The warning popped up. The malfunction seemed to be very brief. So Su Chi moved quickly, writing his private number on the corner of the lipstick packaging with his pen. Just as he finished doing all this, the device's red light flickered on again. Beep, beep, beep. It was scanning everything in front of it. Monitoring system at Workstation 213 has been restored. No anomalies found. Su Chi replied slowly, "Please make sure to personally receive the delivery and carefully check the barcode inside the packaging." The customer seemed stunned for a moment, but did not respond, and then went offline. Don't know if she saw it. Well, with the afternoon's expedited delivery, the result should be known by evening. Su Chi glanced at all the various instruments, devices, and electronic eyes surrounding him. In this world full of surveillance, every action seemed destined to be recorded. It was indeed a hassle, even with the help of Artificial Team's counterattack. It was only a drop in the bucket and couldn't make much impact. Time passed by minute. When people left the company, the sky had already darkened. The middle-aged man sighed, his eyes numb, feeling as if he had been drained. This is the hardest task I've ever done. Even fighting against various monsters, I never complained. But now, I feel like I've lost half my life. Ponytail looked at the other employees, puzzled. But why don't they feel tired? Instead, they seem very excited. Fatty mumbled, "Night owls, I guess. I just get excited at night and can't sleep. I often stay up late." Su Chi looked over calmly. This is completely different after 14 hours of work. Whether it's physical or mental, one would end up exhausted. But after undergoing prosthetic enhancement, things are completely different. Chapter 160. They often only need to use chips for virtual experiences, drug adjustments, prosthetic feedback, even reducing sleep time to just 1 hour. They don't need much sleep. The night is when they release all the pressure of the day. The entire city's neon lights flashed dazzlingly. Large crowds rushed towards the dark corners away from Main City, where there were plenty of cheap but thrilling entertainment venues, commonly known as illegal land. No dignitaries, no security teams. It's a rule-free area scorned by the Main City, attracting large crowds, even livelier and more bustling than during the day. Now I understand why they call it Night City. Fatty stared blankly at everything. It's simply insane. Endless escalating pressures and endless desires to vent. Countless people cannot extricate themselves, willingly sinking into it, forming a terrifying, suffocating balance and cycle. Su Chi muttered to himself. Everyone fell silent, even Rainier Vale sighed. Fatty scratched his head. So, what's next? We go back and sleep. Su Chi. Sleep? At this age, can you even sleep? He looked towards the brightly lit night city. Thousands of players could be growing wildly while you sleep. You still want to sleep? Fatty? This is too intense. Su Bushin is right, Rainier Vale coughed. We don't have time to rest. My suggestion is, we also head to illegal land immediately. The first day has just ended. All players are probably plotting how to use their first earnings. Although we can't afford regular merchandise in Main City, in a place like illegal land, there must be plenty of cheap goods, even a chance to network. Of course, it's also extremely dangerous. Rainier Vale added gravely. After all, killing a player nets you 70% of their cyber coins. There will be fierce killings and strife among players. That's why he hoped the other 4 players would stick together. For now, we don't know if there are any dangerous individuals among these 1,000 players. Naturally, it would be best if everyone got along. But once a fight happens, Rainier Vale, we also need to be prepared. He actually wasn't very confident. A middle-aged man, Fatty, a female player, plus a young man who occasionally makes flippant remarks without a clear thought. The team was really hard to manage. Let's go. They prepared to board the bus heading out of the main city towards illegal land. Illegal land. Such an area. How to describe it? Stripped of the modern, high-tech, fantastical neon urban exterior, illegal land more closely resembled a retro city district, with its dirty, messy environments and chaotic atmosphere filled with all sorts of people. The streets were full of pungent-smelling sprays, litter, chewing gum, thick spit, along with curses and swearing filling the ears. Some were reveling, some were fighting to release frustration, and some were scantily clad, smoking cheap women's cigarettes, standing in the dim streetlight. Fatty murmured, "The vibe is really not bad. Suddenly makes me want to spend." The middle-aged man patted his shoulder. "Let me tell you, don't go. It'll make you sick. Though I heard they have prosthetics for that stuff, you probably won't have to worry once it's installed." Holy shit, that's awesome. Ponytail coughed with a dark face. Can you guys respect me a bit? I'm also a female player, after all. Watching the 3 chatter non-stop. Rainier Vale fell silent. Are you here for a tour? While he was cautiously assessing the surrounding environment, gathering information. But, fortunately, Su Bushin was not involved in this irrelevant conversation. No, wait. Rainier Vale's eyes widened, looking into the distance. He's actually gone over there. At that moment, Su Chi had already walked up to a scantily clad lady. He hadn't yet spoken. The price is 200 cyber coins. The lady, heavily made up, exuding a mix of cheap perfume and cigarette smoke, took a drag on her cigarette and exhaled a dense cloud. Just pay and leave, sweetie? But Su Chi lifted his wristwatch. 1,000 cyber coins. The lady was startled, then smiled seductively. Looks like, young man, you want something thrilling. That's right, Su Chi smiled. Come with me. The lady headed deeper into the alley. Su Chi waved at the others. You guys go gather information first. We'll meet here in 2 hours. Rainier Vale and the others fell silent. I thought he was a decent person. The ponytail female player murmured. Fatty was also stunned. I was just talking. Didn't expect him to actually go. The middle-aged man envied. He can actually last 2 hours. Oh? Are you serious? Rainier Vale sighed. He looked around, noting many people were staring at them. He frowned slightly. Don't stand in the middle of the road. It's too conspicuous. Let's all first get a feel of this place. As they dispersed, several people with mechanical arms, squinting slightly. His companions have left. Then let's cut the chatter and get ready to make a move. In this illegal land, there was no absolute safety. Danger lurked everywhere. They moved towards a house inside. At that moment, the lady had already led Su Chi to a room deep inside. She slowly unlocked the bedroom door, then sat on the bed, cigarette in mouth, gauging the time and distance. "How do you want to play, sir?" Not often we see a guest throw down 1,000 in one go. "Whatever you want to try, I can give it a go."